Chapter 81. 3 Soul Refinings. Achoo! Achoo! Lin Chuan sneezed as he walked across the campus. He rubbed his nose and muttered, "Who could be talking about me?" A thought suddenly struck him, and his expression turned serious. Ning Fengji. If he hadn't gone to the dean's office today, he wouldn't have run into Ning Fengji and Gu Rong. He wouldn't have seen what he had seen. The leader of the Seven Treasures Glaze sect had an incredibly sharp eye. Heroes in this world were like crucian carp swimming upstream. These famous soul masters could not be underestimated. "I'm still too weak," Lin Chuan sighed. If he were already a titled Douluo, none of this would be worrying. He had given the fairy grass pill to Shui Lanxin and Leng Man, not just as a reward, but to raise the overall strength of Tianshui College and draw attention from other powers, buying himself time. Even though he had helped Du Bo with the backlash from the snake venom and gained temporary aid at the titled Douluo level, outside help could never be fully relied upon. The only person he could truly depend on was himself. Hoping the Seven Treasures Glaze sect wouldn't make a move would be foolish. He needed to prepare now. Lin Chuan quickened his pace. Returning to his secluded lakeside residence, still quiet and somewhat isolated, he noticed there were now 3 wooden houses by the shore instead of 2. He didn't probe further. Inside his own hut, he closed the door, sat down, and with a thought, a pale light flared from his brow as the green vein cauldron rose into being. Soul power surged, and the Luoxia bow appeared in his hands. It's time to refine my martial soul again. Ning Fengji's presence had reignited the urgency in him. Strength in a short time might be impossible for most soul masters, but not for Lin Chuan. After incubation, his golden flame earth fire had reached the 9th grade, which meant the green vein cauldron, Qingwen Ding, could be used to refine a soul 3 times. His Luoxia bow had only been refined once so far. Fortunately, it was a weapon spirit. Had it been a beast spirit, this would not have been possible. Let's begin. He set aside the aqua blue danju given to him by the Ice and Fire Dragon King, placed the Luoxia bow into the green vein cauldron, and exhaled a focused jet of flame. The special patterns carved on the cauldron flared to life. It was as if the cauldron drew in the power of heaven and earth, swallowing it like a whale. The air in the wooden house thickened, the concentration of heaven and earth energy rising until a shimmering silver mist formed, beautiful and luminous. The silver light streamed and enveloped the Luoxia bow. Lin Chuan sat cross-legged in that silvery ocean, maintaining the steady output of his golden flame earth fire. 2 hours later, 3 dazzling silver lines were burned into the Luoxia bow before fading, and the weapon's aura climbed noticeably stronger. But the process wasn't done yet. He took the bow into his hands and felt the majestic feedback of soul power surge through him. Level 54, 55, 59, 60. After 2 refinings, his soul power jumped 6 levels in one go. It wasn't the same as the first refining, which had raised his innate soul power, but the gain was still enormous, more than making up for the past 6 months of lost training. Tsk. This soul refiner is absurdly effective, he muttered with a mix of surprise and delight. Not every soul refiner would have such a smooth success rate. Most had a chance of failure. The Qingwen Ding truly was a rare treasure. Huh? Before he could fully savor his victory, the Luoxia bow trembled in his hands. Lin Chuan blinked. "You want to absorb the soul rings?" he blurted. The bow trembled again, answering him. Lin Chuan hesitated, then asked, "If you absorb the soul rings, will I still be able to use their soul skills?" The Luoxia bow trembled once more. Lin Chuan relaxed. He could still use them, and there were additional benefits. Since the bow was his own spirit weapon, there was no reason not to let it absorb them. With a thought, 5 soul rings manifested and floated, falling onto the Luoxia bow one by one without any need for Lin Chuan's control. As each ring shrank, he watched them pour into the bow, and small marks were imprinted along its length. The 5 symbols representing the ring's attributes: fire, ice crystal, hurricane, thunder, and metal. He tried instinctively to summon the rings again, but only felt the bow's solid presence. The soul skills themselves still worked, thankfully. And what about other benefits? He wondered, testing his body. His soul power had not increased. Wait. He reached out and began to sense the flow of heaven and earth around him. Messages popped into his mind, clear as living words. You carefully sense the world and gain a little. Your understanding of the mysteries of the water element deepens slightly. You carefully sense the world and gain a little. Your understanding of the mysteries of the fire element deepens slightly. You carefully sense the world and gain a little. Your understanding of the mysteries of the wind element deepens slightly. You carefully sense the world and gain a little. Your understanding of the mysteries of the thunder element deepens slightly. You carefully sense the world and gain a little. Your understanding of the mysteries of the metal element deepens. Over and over those entries appeared. Lin Chuan felt pleasantly surprised. Holding the Luoxia bow had sharpened his perception of the 5 natural forces: wind, thunder, water, fire, and metal. To test it, he set the bow aside, and the subtle feeling of immersion in the natural ocean vanished. Picking it up brought the sensation flooding back. It actually helps me comprehend the mysteries of things. As an extra effect, incredible. He cradled the bow, stroking it, eyes alight. You're really my good baby. The Luoxia bow trembled slightly in what felt like a contented response. An idea struck Lin Chuan. He took the aqua-blue danju in his other hand. Immediately, the sense of being submerged in a water ocean intensified. You carefully sense the world and gain a lot. Your understanding of the mysteries of the water element deepens greatly. Double benefit. At this rate, it wouldn't be long before his understanding of the water mystery broke through to the 2nd level. A bright gleam appeared in his eyes. It seems I have my training plan before the Soul Master competition, he thought. First get the 6th soul ring, then continue to deepen my comprehension of all elements and try applying them in battle. He settled in, more determined than ever, to make the most of the green vein cauldron and the Luoxia bow. The competition, and whatever would come after, would find him ready. Chapter 82, The Archer's Fighting Style. Early the next morning, Lin Chuan went to find Douluo Bo. Huh? Lin, you want me as your sparring partner? Douluo Bo's eyes glittered, and the corners of his mouth curled into a faint, knowing smile. Lin Chuan had the sense this old poison was oddly excited, but he didn't think much of it and nodded. Yes, I want Senior Douluo to train me in actual combat. No problem at all. I was just curious to see how powerful you little monster really are. Douluo Bo agreed without hesitation. Let's go to the fighting spirit arena at the academy. All right, I'll lead the way. No sooner had Douluo Bo finished speaking than he vanished. Lin Chuan was not about to be outdone. He pushed off with his feet and became a streak of residual light, closing the gap. The world blurred past, wind howling in their ears, until the green flash and black shadow reached the summit of Feishuang Mountain, almost together. Douluo Bo had stopped when Lin Chuan arrived. Lin boy, you're fast, Douluo Bo said with surprise. Lin Chuan smiled, amusement in his eyes. Just a small trick, nothing major. Senior Douluo, shall we begin? All right, let me test your weight, little monster. Douluo Bo placed his hands behind his back. A sharp light passed through his gaze, and a shadow formed behind him. Gold and green energies wrapped around him, and 9 soul rings appeared in quick succession, 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 5 black. The pressure from the titled Douluo dropped over the arena like a heavy blanket. Even the air felt denser. Show me your martial spirit. I'll let you strike first. Once I move, you won't get another chance. Douluo Bo didn't rush into an attack. He spoke with the arrogant ease of someone used to commanding a fight. Lin Chuan chuckled inwardly rather than feeling offended. This old poison's disdain made the coming outcome all the more interesting. He wanted to see the look on Douluo Bo's face if he lost. Very well, please teach me, senior. Light flared from Lin Chuan's palm, and the Luoxia bow manifested from nothing. There was no soul ring visible, however, and Douluo Bo's brow creased. Boy, where's your soul ring? Lin Chuan smiled and explained. My situation is unusual. The soul ring has been integrated into my martial soul. What? Douluo Bo's reaction was immediate disbelief. He stared, stunned. In his experience, a soul ring disappearing from sight because it had been fused into the martial soul was a feat only achievable by a spirit master of the very highest caliber. He could only recall the sword Douluo of the 7 Treasures Glazed sect doing such a thing. That a kid like this could manage it was outrageous. Douluo Bo's scorn evaporated, and his expression shifted to one of alarm. Swish, a bowstring sang, and like a meteor, a string of flaming arrows exploded outward toward Douluo Bo in a dense volley. Fast! Dugubo exclaimed as the arrows bore down on him. Behind him, his soul ring flared, and a khaki energy shield materialized, enveloping his body. Boom! The flaming arrow slammed into the barrier, detonating on impact. Flames spouted into the air, and the fire surged to engulf both Dugubo and his shield. Smoke and grit rolled up into the sky. Lin Chuan loosed a few more arrows. This time, they rode on the force of a hurricane, fracturing into multiple streaks in midair. Dozens divided into dozens more, until the sky seemed thick with falling arrows that dove into the smoke and debris. The swirling gale cut through the smoke like a blade and cleared the air in an instant. Dugubo staggered back. His shield had been shattered. "Lin boy, what kind of technique is this? Its power is abnormal," Dugubo called out, his voice edged with growing unease. What surprised him more than the brute strength of the attacks was their speed and density, so many precise, relentless strikes that made closing the distance perilous. He found himself forced to rethink the boy's capabilities. Lin Chuan was far more formidable than he had assumed. "We must close in," he decided. With that thought, Dugubo lunged forward. Lin Chuan's lips twitched. "Don't think it'll be so easy to get close, Senior Dugu." He unleashed another barrage of energy arrows, fast, precise, and densely packed. Whatever path Dugubo chose forward, arrows met him there. Each step was answered by a salvo. "So he's not just talented, he's experienced in battle," Dugubo muttered, more surprised than before. "Time to get serious." A turquoise poisonous mist erupted from the shadow of Dugubo's martial spirit, spreading across most of the arena. Lin Chuan took a quick hop back and loosed another flaming arrow. The arrow's flame slipped into the toxin and ignited it instantly. Fire and poison are natural enemies. The poisonous haze flared and burned. Damn, Dugubo's face went ashen as the extreme heat licked him. Even as a titled Douluo, he felt the burn. Dirt and grit plastered his armor. Attacks kept forcing him back. His pride bristled. This was an indignity he could not endure. This kid is strange. The potency of his spirit techniques rivals that of a spirit sage, and the temperature of this fire is unusually high. I can't hold back any longer. If he hesitated more, he might lose control of the fight and disgrace himself. Without a second thought, a ray of light flared through the flames. Dugubo released his seventh spirit skill, the martial soul true body. His already tall frame swelled. With a surge of soul power, he vanished from sight for a heartbeat and reappeared as a hulking monster, 5 or 6 feet of terrifying mass. The green phosphorescent earth dragon, the first true form after a martial soul's evolution. The creature roared, a sound that shook the arena and blew the sea of fire away in a gust. Lin Chuan's eyes brightened. So it's finally serious, but the martial soul true body is a disadvantage for me. He narrowed his eyes. It makes him bigger, an easier living target. He drew the bowstring taut, an arrow shimmered into being, blazing with golden radiance. The fifth spirit skill. The golden arrow. Charged with mental energy, the arrow sped forward like a beam of light. The green phosphorescent dragon thundered and lunged. Its razor claws shot out and clamped around the golden light. Chapter 83, The True Power of the Mystery of All Things. A roar split the air. The green phosphorus earth dragon reared its head toward the sky, pain flashing across its eyes. It looked down and saw one of its thick dragon claws pierced. At the same moment, a golden arrow had driven straight into its chest. Pain stabbed through its mind. Blood poured out, dyeing the arena floor red. Dugubo swore inwardly. How could this brat be so hard to handle? Each of his soul skills was ruthless, so unpredictable it was almost impossible to guard against. Closing the distance had become a real problem. "Lie down for me," Dugubo bellowed. He stamped the ground with a heavy foreleg. From the soul fighting platform, a thunderous crack answered, and countless stone thorns erupted from the earth, racing toward Lin Chuan's position. "Too much," Lin Chuan muttered with a rueful smile, though he'd expected it. He planted his feet and began to step across the emerging thorns, jumping and dodging. His first-level physical training helped him turn a sudden attack into nothing more than an inconvenience. Still, he couldn't help being impressed. After taking the Earth Dragon pill, Dugubo's martial soul had evolved and now wielded the power of Earth, powerful and unexpectedly formidable. "Ice arrow!" Lin Chuan cried. White light flashed and 2 arrows struck the dragon's hind legs. Ice crawled up and encased the lower body of the green phosphorus earth dragon, cold tendrils seeping inward to try and freeze him from the inside. "This is persistent, annoying," Douluo snarled. The dragon's immense form burst with brilliant light, and then an oppressive momentum blasted out, shattering the ice at its base. It opened its maw and shot out a barrage of rocks coated in green poison. Douluo's soul skills had shifted significantly after his evolution, deadlier and more varied. That was just a warm-up. Lin Chuan's Luoxia bow condensed into a ball of light, then split in two and fell into his hands as a pair of blades, Ye Ying's twin swords. The sword light roared and shattered the incoming stones. With a fierce, synchronized sweep, Lin Chuan closed the distance instead of retreating. Douluo blinked in surprise. He had not expected Lin Chuan's martial spirit to change forms so fluidly. Still, he didn't have time to dwell on it. A ruthless smile crossed his face. "Brave boy, you want to come at me? I'll teach you a lesson." The dragon charged like a battering ram. Each stamp of its feet sent trembling soul power through the ground, leaving shallow craters in the arena. "Bring it on." Lin Chuan's voice was calm. Two circles of light erupted from him, expanding to envelop the area. The blazing mystery of fire of all things flared at his right, while the gentle mystery of water of all things unfurled at his left. The two elemental mysteries bloomed fully and formed a force field around the green phosphorus earth dragon. Douluo froze as a crushing pressure bore down on him. "What kind of power is this? It suppresses me, like the legendary realm," he thought in alarm. Lin Chuan sprang forward in an instant. One blade coalesced into a night-black edge wreathed in ferocious flame. The other became a shadowy blade wrapped in warm, flowing water. He slashed as if two stars collided. "Head on? How arrogant!" Douluo snorted and struck back. The green phosphorus earth dragon was normally a control type, but after evolving it had become much more offensive, strong enough to clash with soul masters of equal rank, even soul kings. He met Lin Chuan's assault without flinching. The twin swords crashed into the dragon's claws with a thunderous impact. The beast staggered and took a heavy step back with a resonant thud, eyes blazing with surprise. The force shoved Lin Chuan several feet away as well. "More?" Lin Chuan's eyes glinted. He halted his slide, recovered his balance, and moved forward faster than before, his attacks now ghost-like in speed. The green phosphorus earth dragon lashed out with a flurry of claws trying to catch him, but Lin Chuan's smaller frame and superior agility gave him the upper hand. The dragon's massive strikes missed time and again, while Lin Chuan darted among them, occasionally parrying with both swords. Each cut left burning scars across the dragon's flank. They weren't fatal, but the sting of constant hits wore on Douluo. "You're like a fly, so annoying. Get away!" The dragon roared and slammed its feet down. Stone thorns erupted once more, fanning outward. Lin Chuan's expression hardened. He tightened his core and swung both swords in a single explosive motion. The oncoming thorns shattered under the blade's shockwave. Flames surged along his arms, forming a moving barrier. The green poisonous mist could not cross it. Using that opening, Douluo seized a breath and withdrew. The dragon shape dissolved, and Douluo reverted to human form. His face was fierce. "Lin Chuan, I want to crush you today," he said, the aura around him sharp and dangerous. This kid's flexibility was maddening. His spirit body, small and slippery, had become an advantage, and worse, Lin Chuan's flame field perfectly suppressed Douluo's poison techniques. Without his poison, much of Douluo's power was neutralized. Still, a titled Douluo was a titled Douluo. In a contest of raw strength, he wasn't afraid. "Careful, senior," Lin Chuan grinned, eyes alight with battle fervor. This time, fighting in human form made Douluo quicker and more dexterous at the cost of some brute strength. Lin Chuan's advantage lessened, but not enough to tip the scales. He relied on speed, precise swordplay, and the synergy between his two blades, practically like having two Lin Chuans on the field. The two opposing forces intersected and struck with complex rhythm. Douluo's confidence began to fray. He couldn't find a way through. Where had this kid learned such swordsmanship? His speed was unreal, and coordinating two swords so fluidly, was this even possible at his age? What unsettled Douluo most was the elemental wrapping around the swords. Flames and warm water coiled about the blades, muting his poison and denying him a major part of his arsenal. For the first time in the duel, the titled Douluo felt genuinely afraid. Chapter 84. Defeat Feishuang Mountain was in uproar. The surge of spirit power from Lin Chuan and Douluo had been so violent it drew the attention of everyone nearby. Shui Langqin and Leng Man hurried up the mountain the instant they realized something was wrong. What's happening? The fluctuation is coming from Douluo and Xiao Chuan. Why are they fighting? Shui Langqin asked, breathless. They reached the summit and found the two of them locked in combat on the fighting spirit stage. Swordlight flashed like lightning. Even from a distance, it felt dangerous. Shui Langqin's eyes widened. You're kidding. Xiao Chuan can actually go toe-to-toe with Douluo? This is ridiculous. Leng Man said nothing, but shock showed plainly on her face. Not long ago, she had been a sparring partner for Lin Chuan. Back then, without using her spirit body manifestation, she couldn't take him down. And now, only a short time later, he was fighting a titled Douluo. Even if Douluo wasn't using his full strength, what Lin Chuan was showing was astonishing. Something's wrong, Shui Langqin muttered, voice tight. Xiao Chuan's spirit power is clearly at level 60, but his attack force isn't weaker than a soul Douluo's. Every time he swings his sword, it's as if heaven and earth are answering him. It's incredible. She couldn't hide the thrill. What kind of child was this? A prodigy, a divine reincarnation, whatever the label, he seemed unreal. Langqin, you really brought back a monster, Leng Man said slowly. Shui Langqin nodded, then broke into a delighted smile. Yes, I'm so glad I brought Xiao Chuan back to the academy. The champion of this Soul Master competition will belong to Tianshui Academy. With Lin Chuan's current power, they had no doubts. He could probably take on 7 opponents at once. Shui Langqin was certain no other academy could field someone to match him, not even the Wuhan Hall. On the stage, Lin Chuan's twin Night Shadow swords moved like twin volcanoes erupting. Douluo dared not meet them head-on and was forced onto the defensive. The fierce fire and feminine water forces Lin Chuan manipulated together made his assaults unpredictable and overwhelming. No, this isn't enough, Lin Chuan thought, pushing himself. If I can merge the mysteries of water and fire, absorb each other's strengths, the force will multiply. As he fought, he felt something deepen within him, an intuitive, almost physical understanding of the elemental mysteries. He felt the water mystery settle into him, then the fire, and his swordsmanship sharpened. His proficiency in the thunder sword technique climbed. With each realization, the world seemed to hum with power, and his aura swelled. Douluo's face darkened. He glanced at the crowd, hissing through his teeth. I can't keep going like this, or I'll lose face. Little monster, I'll use my best. If you can't take it, yield now. Otherwise, you'll die under my blade. Do it, senior, Lin Chuan said faintly. At once, the 8th soul ring on Douluo's body flared to life, a black light crawling over him. He spat out a green bead, and a strange, suffocating wave rolled outward. The entire fighting stage seemed to freeze. The air itself grew sticky, and time felt thick. Lin Chuan felt a binding force lock onto him. He pushed and found he could not budge. This is the old poison's temporal stasis, Lin Chuan thought. He could not simply overpower it. The drain would be too great. He had to try another way. Flames and water crawled along his skin, 2 opposing mysteries weaving together. As they intertwined, his body trembled. Douluo stared in shock. He actually wants to break my temporal stasis by force. Ridiculous. He could not let Lin Chuan succeed. Temporal stasis was devastatingly powerful, but burned a huge amount of energy. If Lin Chuan broke it, Douluo might not be able to subdue him afterward. With that in mind, Douluo made a decision. The ground at his feet bulged, rocks rose and pinned Lin Chuan down. At the same moment, 2 pale beams shot from Douluo's eyes straight at Lin Chuan. White light washed over him and his skin lost color as his body began to petrify. In seconds, he was a statue of stone. Recover, Douluo murmured, and the black light of his 8th ring collapsed inward. The frozen space released. Everything around returned to normal. Only the stone statue of Lin Chuan remained, trapped between jagged rocks. Douluo's shoulders slackened a little in relief. Finally, that was close. This little monster is difficult to deal with. He looked pale and shaken, feeling luckier than he wished to admit. If Lin Chuan's spirit power had been any greater, Douluo's restraint might have failed. The flow of water and fire had been too strange, too potent. Still, This was a competition. Even he, Dugubo, couldn't risk using his ninth soul skill here. The consequences could be catastrophic for Lin Chuan's foundation. Something about this kid's control of the field, Dugubo whispered, half to himself, admiration and envy in his voice. Even he lacked that kind of mastery. A faint cracking noise cut through the mountain air. Dugubo glanced at the stone statue again, and his expression shifted. Tiny fissures had spidered across the statue's surface. They widened rapidly until the statue shattered with a thunderous bang. Lin Chuan stumbled to the earth, the flames and water that had clung to him dissolving. He looked pale and exhausted. He raised a hand weakly and forced a bitter smile. That's enough. I admit defeat. Senior, you're truly powerful. Thank you for your mercy. Relief washed over Dugubo. All right, Lin Chuan, don't be so downcast. You pushed me farther than most, and I still couldn't finish you. You should be proud. You're a monster of a talent. Lin Chuan returned a wan smile and shook his head. He knew his limits now. His spirit power had been drained. Though his body could still fight, continuing was pointless. It was too soon to go all out against a titled Douluo. If escape had been his goal, it would not have been easy. Only a titled Douluo could truly pin him down. He also realized, with a new respect and a bit of uncertainty, that the combined mysteries of water and fire were more powerful than he'd imagined. How they stacked up against the Killing God realm or the Blue-Silver realm on the Douluo Continent, he still didn't know. For now, exhaustion and prudence had decided the match. He had been defeated, but not broken. Chapter 85, The Gap in Foundation. Ye Ying's twin swords dissolved into streaks of light and vanished. Lin Chuan swallowed a few qi recovery pills. The medicine spread through him, and his soul power came back quickly. It was a shame his grasp of the two mysteries remained so shallow. If he truly mastered them, the force he could unleash would be far greater, especially if he could learn to combine the two. He sighed inwardly, but was in no rush. Water and fire do not naturally coexist. Fusing two utterly different powers would not be easy. Without a teacher, he could only cross the river by feeling for the stones. Lin boy, how did your martial soul change like that? Dugubo asked, curiosity getting the better of him. It's similar to what you experienced, Senior, Lin Chuan replied. After taking the pill, my martial soul changed. The soul ring integrated into it, and now it has multiple forms. Dugubo's eyes lit up. Different forms meant different attack patterns and techniques, more options in combat. The advantages for a soul master were obvious. How had this kid managed to get so many boons? And the flames and water on your twin blades earlier, those boosted your attacks and suppressed me. Is that some kind of domain? Dugubo asked, leaning forward. Senior, you're sharp-eyed, Lin Chuan said with a smile. A mystery of all things can be thought of as a kind of domain. It forms a force field. A domain? Dugubo couldn't keep his composure. His gaze grew hot. Little monster, how did you get this domain? It depends on comprehension, Lin Chuan answered. Dugubo froze, then his expression soured. Don't play coy, Lin. You don't have to toy with me. Senior Dugu, you misunderstand. I'm not joking. Lin Chuan rubbed the back of his head, a little embarrassed, and summoned his martial soul again. This time, it became the Silver Moon Spear. It's hard to explain. Just watch. He began to practice spear techniques. The spear blurs moved with swift, natural economy. Dugubo watched, increasingly astonished. What a deep base. This is the most basic military spearmanship, yet most people would take 10 years to reach this level. Not only was the boy proficient with a bow and fierce with swords, he also had rock-solid spearmanship. A teenager with 3 mastered disciplines, Dugubo felt a rare flash of resentment toward fortune. For the first time, he thought life was plainly unfair. Lin Chuan stopped and smiled. This is my spearmanship. Next. The Silver Moon Spear split into 2, becoming the Night Shadow twin blades again. With a single slash, Dugubo's pupils contracted. Lin Chuan swung the blades as if covering the world. Water seemed to gather around the moving edges, and that familiar suppressing force returned. It felt as though the world itself was assisting him. Dugubo sensed his strength being restricted, about a 15% suppression. Lin Chuan halted and looked up. Senior, do you feel the difference? Dugubo hesitated, then answered slowly. You were calling on the power of heaven and earth. Yes, Lin Chuan nodded. Dugubo's breadth of knowledge showed despite his limited rank among the titled Douluo. How did you do it? He asked. Honestly, Lin Chuan said, when I was practicing swordsmanship, I slipped into a special state. Each move seemed to attract the power of heaven and earth, and I could sense the natural elements floating between them. He raised a hand, and a ribbon of water formed from the air with a soft gurgle, the water that truly existed between heaven and earth. With the spring water from the senior's medicinal garden, I managed to comprehend traces of water and fire and grasp an ability similar to a domain. I call that state the unity of man and nature. Dugubo was shaken. The idea that a technique could be refined to the point of drawing elemental power directly from the world without relying on a martial spirit blew apart his assumptions. If power could be taken from heaven and earth itself, then perhaps ordinary people who never became soul masters might still access strength. The implications were staggering. You're not joking? Dugubo's voice was hoarse. He still found it hard to believe. Lin Chuan didn't say more. He swung his sword again, this time without invoking the two mysteries, but with the blessing of heaven and earth power, the strike was still terrifying. Dugubo had no words. The events of the day had shaken him deeply. He'd long noticed that many soul masters on Douluo Continent neglected fundamentals, relying on soul rings and raw power rather than understanding essence and application. Few could refine a skill to the level of subtlety Lin Chuan demonstrated. Even the gods in the god realm, he suspected, might suffer the same weakness. You figured this out on your own. It shames me, Dugubo admitted, a faint melancholy rising within him. He'd been swept aside by the next generation. This era no longer belonged to men like him. Your Majesty Dugu, Xiaochuan. Shui Lanxin and Leng Man, who had been watching the fight outside the arena, stepped forward. They'd overheard the conversation. Dean Director. Lin Chuan greeted them. Xiaochuan, you're already this strong. It's incredible, Shui Lanxin said, eyes wide. Can you let me experience that power you used? Me too, Leng Man echoed. Lin Chuan smiled. Of course, be careful. As soon as he spoke, the air around them trembled. A blue field spread outward like a divine territory, radiating for dozens of feet and instantly covering Shui Lanxin and Leng Man, both froze in place. It's so heavy, they thought in unison. Then they snapped back into motion, but the oppressive force lingered. Their martial spirits felt suppressed. Shui Lanxin estimated a 30% reduction, Leng Man 35%. Horror crept up their spines. If those at Lin Chuan's level could be so stifled, then even soul masters of equal title might find themselves helpless under this kind of suppression. When the blue light finally faded, Shui Lanxin and Leng Man both sagged with relief and let out long breaths. What terrifying power, Shui Lanxin murmured. Under those restrictions, even I might not have stood a chance. Xiaochuan, you've improved frighteningly fast. Shui Lanxin's eyes glittered with restrained awe. Dugubo, having witnessed the scene, wore an expression of genuine surprise. The realm Lin Chuan had formed with his mystery of all things was far more potent than any of them had expected. It hadn't been obvious to Dugubo at first, but it showed plainly against Shui Lanxin and Leng Man. Now, he was nearly certain, whatever secrets Lin Chuan had mastered were stronger than many realms in the Douluo Continent. With this kind of power, I don't have to worry so much about his safety anymore, he thought. From what Lin Chuan had unleashed, it was clear he had reached Contra level at full strength, enough to briefly contend with a titled Douluo. He could already be a major presence across the continent. Dugubo felt a rush of vindication for having wanted Duguyan transferred to Tianshui Academy. A talent like this was bound to become one of the greatest. A sudden urgency flickered in him. He needed to act fast when they returned, and make sure others didn't get there first. The others didn't know Dugubo's private thoughts, but Shui Lanxin herself had a similar calculation in mind. Suddenly, Leng Man turned to Lin Chuan with a more practical question. Lin Chuan, your soul power is at 60 now? All of them had been shaken by the display of power, and only now, as they regrouped, did it register in Leng Man's mind. Lin Chuan didn't try to hide it and simply nodded. Yes, it's at level 60. Shui Lanxin chimed in, a faint scold in her tone. Then why did you say yesterday that your soul power hadn't improved much? Lin Chuan only grinned and stayed silent. He couldn't very well explain the blue pattern cauldron. He wouldn't tell them that his soul power had leapt several levels overnight. Better to keep some things to himself. Enough of that, Shui Lansin said quickly, dropping the interrogation. Since your soul power is already 60 and you need a soul ring, let's hunt souls now, while there's still time before the elite preliminaries. Dugubo waved the suggestion away modestly. You don't need to thank me. Helping you bag 1 or 2 soul beasts is nothing. There was an unspoken sentiment behind his flippant manner. He already treated Lin Chuan like family, almost like a grandson-in-law, so courtesy felt unnecessary. We'll leave tomorrow, he added. The sparring had taken a toll. Using his 8th soul skill against a 10,000-year soul beast had cost him a lot of energy, and he needed to rest and prepare. By the way, Dean Shui, how are the effects of the elixir I gave you? Dugubo asked, eyes flicking between Shui Lanxin and Leng Man. Both women's skin looked plumper, healthier. They exchanged pleased glances. We took it last night, Shui Lanxin said. It works very well. My soul power rose 3 levels, and Leng Man reached 80, though that one pill seemed to be more than just a simple 3-level jump. Leng Man's expression betrayed a rare excitement. One pill had saved years of toil. At level 80, with a single soul ring, she could break through to Soul Douluo, a fearsome combat power on the Douluo Continent. Lin Chuan, thank you, she said softly. Lin Chuan shrugged. You saved me in the Star Forest. The pill was nothing. He remembered how Leng Man had risked herself to stop the Titan ape. Beneath her frosty demeanor, she was a good person. The threefold alchemical refinement had worked wonders. Shui Lanxin, for her part, was only 1 level away from reaching level 90. With these breakthroughs, the first title Douluo from Tianshui Academy was no longer far off. How do you plan to get Director Leng's soul ring? Shui Lanxin asked with a light laugh. Don't worry about it, Shui Lanxin replied. I'll go back to the Shui household and find some help. Besides, I have 2 contras on my side. An 8th spirit ring should be manageable. That should be enough, Lin Chuan said. With the elixir, Leng Man's physique had strengthened as well. She could probably handle a soul ring around 60,000 years old. 2 soul Douluo with a few soul saints backing them up could deal with most situations. The harder part would be finding a soul beast of the right age and attributes. Still, things were turning out well. Once Shui Lanxin became a titled Douluo, Tianshui Academy would command real respect, and anyone thinking of making a move would have to think twice. The next morning, Lin Chuan and Dugubo set out for the Xingdou Great Forest. Shui Lanxin and Leng Man also left to hunt souls, not only for themselves but to help other members of the Tianshui team. After taking Lin Chuan's marrow-cleansing pill, Shui Yuer, Shen Liuyu, Gu Qingbo, and Qu Ruoshui had all reached level 40 in soul power. They now needed soul rings to break through. Shui Lanxin was thrilled. Having a full team of level 40 members would significantly boost their chances in the preliminaries. Even without Lin Chuan, Shui Binger could probably make it to the finals. The Shui household and Tianshui Academy both had promising successors. A luxurious carriage sped along the wide road. Inside, Dugu Bo and Lin Chuan sat together, and Dugu Yan had joined them. The girl had apparently insisted on following when she heard Lin Chuan was heading out to hunt souls. Dugu Bo hadn't stopped her. As they rode, Dugu Bo peppered Lin Chuan with questions. Tell me more about this unity of man and nature, he said eagerly. How did you come to comprehend the natural power of heaven and earth? Lin Chuan answered as best he could, sharing his experiences. Whether anyone else could reproduce his path, he couldn't be sure. But for now, with allies, elixirs, and a clear plan, they were moving forward, 1 soul ring at a time. Chapter 87, Fighting the Wolf. A few days later, Lin Chuan, Dugu Bo, and Dugu Yan pushed deeper into the Stardew Forest, searching for a suitable soul beast. How many years' worth of soul ring are you planning to take this time, kid? Dugu Bo asked softly as he walked ahead, his eyes constantly sweeping their surroundings. At least a 50,000-year ring, Lin Chuan answered without hesitation. 50,000? Dugu Bo's expression flickered. Then he relaxed when he remembered the sparring match from a few days earlier. Restrictions that bound ordinary people could do nothing to a true genius. Have you thought about what kind of soul beast you want to hunt? He asked again. It should ideally have an elemental attribute, Lin Chuan said after a moment's thought. For him, it wasn't just about the strength of the soul skill. The Luoxia bow he carried was special. A soul ring integrated into it helped in perceiving the nature of heaven and earth. Even if it couldn't reveal the deepest laws, it would at least provide an introduction, an insight most on Douluo Continent couldn't get except from gods. Lin Chuan had already decided his path, to combine different mysteries to comprehend formidable techniques. Elemental attributes would be far more useful for that purpose than ordinary soul skills. This area is close to the core. Yan, stay close to Lin Chuan. If anything goes wrong, fall back immediately, Douluo warned. Even at soul power level 94, he knew the Douluo forest demanded caution. A titled Douluo could be overwhelmed if surrounded by dozens of high-level 10,000-year soul beasts. He wouldn't take unnecessary risks. They spent several days combing the forest. The Douluo forest was full of 1,000-year beasts, more than enough candidates, but many of them were unsuitable. Some duplicated attributes Lin Chuan already had, some carried poisonous traits, and only a very small number fit both of his criteria. He was in no rush, prepared to wait for the right opportunity. Night came quietly. The forest closed around them, moonlight blocked by thick, towering trees. Only a few pale beams managed to slide through the leaves. The darkness made the place feel oppressive. They rested on a massive branch. These trees were larger than expected, their limbs broad enough to sleep on without difficulty. And, to avoid attracting high-level predators, they didn't light a fire. This place at night is creepy, Yan admitted, drawing closer to Lin Chuan and burrowing in against him. Her slender form leaned against his side. Lin Chuan glanced at her, but didn't move away. The closeness was pleasant. The faint scent she carried was intoxicating, but his calm expression betrayed no embarrassment. Douluo, watching, couldn't help but grin inwardly at his granddaughter's boldness. He turned away, pretending not to notice. Lin Chuan's mouth twitched, but he kept quiet. He'd been single before the time travel. In this life, he'd become something like a sage, yet he was still a young man. The warmth at his side stirred him, a normal human reaction, nothing more. Yan, feeling the change, trembled and blushed, though the dim light hid it. Lin Chuan noticed, his own face reddening slightly. It was a brief, awkward moment, and just as the atmosphere grew a little tense, a wolf howl split the night air. That howl coming from around here means the beast must be strong, Douluo said. Do you want to check it out? Let's go, Lin Chuan said. Yan slipped away quietly. Both of them understood what had just passed. They followed Douluo toward the source of the howl, pushing through dense undergrowth. Suddenly, a shaft of moonlight opened ahead, revealing a scene. Under that pale light, dozens, maybe hundreds of golden wolf shadows had gathered, circling a strange creature at the center, a human-faced demon spider. The pack looked as if it were hunting. The golden wolf? Douluo narrowed his eyes. The so-called golden wolf was a type of metal soul beast, faster than the larger metal categories like lion, tiger, leopard, or bear, and dangerous in packs. This group alone must number in the hundreds. The strongest among them was probably a 30,000-year beast. There were 3 10,000-year wolves as well. That much concentrated power in the Douluo forest was no small thing. But something's off, Douluo muttered. There are only 3 10,000-year wolves. How would they dare attack a human-faced spider with cultivation close to 50,000 years? That's asking for death. Even before Douluo finished, Lin Chuan's eyes narrowed. The 30,000-year wolf isn't the leader. There's a big one hiding in the shadows. Douluo followed his gaze, and after a moment, also noticed a faint aura among the trees. A slender silver figure stepped into the moonlight. Douluo frowned. He had dealt with many soul beasts over the years, but he had no clear impression of this silver wolf. Lin Chuan's expression changed to one of stunned recognition. A silver moon wolf? He breathed. No, more precisely, a silver moon wolf king. Those beasts were supposed to originate from the sun and moon continent. Why would one be here, in the depths of the Douluo forest? Lin Chuan's mind raced. Evolutionary mutation? A stray migration? Regardless of its origin, this was a rare, formidable soul beast, one that didn't belong in the usual catalog of local life. The silver wolf's presence explained why the golden wolf pack dared to press the attack. With such a leader concealed in the dark, the odds were no longer what they appeared to be. Lin Chuan's heart quickened. This encounter was far more dangerous and potentially far more valuable than they had expected. Chapter 88. The Fisherman Gains the Advantage. The Silver Moon Wolf King was enormous, almost 4 meters from nose to tail. Not as bulky as the 10,000-year golden wolf, it was lean and powerfully muscled. A tuft of silver-white fur on its forehead curled into the shape of a crescent moon, and its whole body seemed to shimmer with that same pale sheen. It was said to have an uncanny affinity for all the elements, able to wield water, fire, earth, wind, light, and darkness, and its spiritual attributes were equally formidable. That combination made it dangerous beyond its years. The Silver Moon Wolf King before them had been cultivating for nearly 50,000 years, and its mental power alone demanded respect. No wonder the Golden Wolves had dared to attack the man-faced demon spider. This battle was being anchored by the Wolf King. Metal. Sorry, Golden Wolf possesses a gold element nature that overlaps with your 5th soul skill, Mr. Lin, Douluo warned. Its age is also too low. We should withdraw. Douluo's red lips parted in a small, puzzled frown. Lin Chuan watched the fight with a faint smile and a steady look in his eyes. No, I've already chosen the soul beast. I want the silver-haired wolf. Douluo's brow knitted. Little monster, that silver wolf is unknown to me. Absorbing a soul ring from an unfamiliar beast is risky. Are you sure you don't want to pick another? Lin Chuan shook his head without hesitation. I'm certain. I have a strong feeling that the silver wolf is meant for me. Douluo's gaze lingered on him, hoarse and low. Have you thought this through? Lin Chuan simply nodded. I have. Douluo gave a reluctant exhale. Fine, you always do things your own way. But don't rush in. Let the man-faced demon spider sap the strength of those golden wolves first, and then we'll move in to reap the benefits. The man-faced demon spider was an advanced soul beast in its own right. It might not be a full spider king, but it was one of the killers among soul beasts, dangerous enough to stand toe-to-toe with many thousand-year creatures despite its more modest age. The Golden Wolf Pack had every reason to be cautious. Bringing it down would not be easy. Let's do it, Douluo murmured. The Golden Wolves narrowed in. The man-faced demon spider, despite being surrounded, showed no fear. It rattled its front legs and opened its grotesque mandibles to reveal rows of serrated fangs. Its slender spider legs gleamed coldly, poison lacing each barb. The lead, a 30,000-year-old golden wolf, threw its head back and roared. The other 3 10,000-year-old wolves lunged forward with golden light flaring across their bodies and claws aimed like blades. They leapt as one toward the spider. The spider's response was terrifyingly efficient. It laughed, a sound like grinding stones, and sprayed a massive black web the size of a man's pelt. One of the 10,000-year wolves, unlucky and the weakest of the pack, became entangled. He crashed to the earth, struggling until his movements slowed and then froze. The spider's venom acted fast, paralyzing flesh and draining soul power and vitality with brutal speed. What a potent soul skill. That neurotoxin is vicious, Douluo breathed. Lin Chuan nodded. The man-faced demon spider was exactly as feared, a swift killer. Its web and venom assault could immobilize and exhaust an enemy in moments, and while the ability had a limit, only 3 sprays a day, it was lethal in close quarters. Furious, the remaining golden wolves attacked from different angles. The spider batted 2 of them aside with its front legs but couldn't avoid every blow. Sharp claws scored 3 deep gouges along its carapace, leaving raw, smoking wounds. With a sudden burst of motion, the spider flung itself upward and spat another web, this time striking 2 more wolves that couldn't evade in time. Yet the pack's leader, the Golden Wolf King, was not done. He bared his teeth and lunged, slashing at the spider in midair. As the spider fell, a great fireball burst from the shadows and struck it full on. The creature hit the forest floor amid smoke and fire, its 8 legs twitching as black scorch marks seared across its shell and wisps of smoke rose from the rents in its armor. The spider leapt up and fled, legs churning in a frantic scramble for safety among the trees. The golden wolves were close behind. Instead of chasing, the Silver Moon Wolf King paused and began to breathe flame at the clinging webs that bound his trapped comrades. He concentrated the heat, incinerating the sticky filaments that held the wounded wolves fast. Now, Lin Chuan whispered. He drew the Luoxia bow and opened his stance. Dozens of silent white wind arrows erupted, soundless and swift, raining down like a winter gust. The Silver Moon Wolf King, who had been gathering fire in his throat, sensed the incoming strike through the reach of his mental power and twisted to evade, but the arrows came from everywhere. One pierced his left foreleg, another slammed into his right eye. The wolf howled as his eye burst, blood pouring down his muzzle, and he rolled on the ground before forcing himself to his paws. Before Lin could react, Douluo shouted, "Eighth soul skill, true body of the green phosphorus earth dragon." In an instant, Douluo transformed into a massive earth dragon. No wings unfurled behind him, but a fetid green mist clung to his scaled form and withered the nearby vegetation where it passed. Black light swirled about him as his eighth soul ring flared to life. The Silver Moon Wolf King found himself seized, rooted by the dragon's power. The earth dragon didn't hesitate. It drove a poisoned claw into the wolf's chest, aiming to finish the job. Lin Chuan's eyes widened. He hadn't expected Douluo to unleash such a decisive move so quickly. Using an eighth soul skill on a living target left little room for error. But the wolf was not defeated yet. At the last instant, its silver eyes flared with a blazing light. A tremendous wave of mental power surged outward, and for a heartbeat it fractured the dragon's immobilizing hold. The Wolf King twisted free, and a thin shell of ice crystallized along his chest as he fought to block the poisoned strike. The forest stilled, tension crackling through the air. The fight, far from over, had just taken a dangerous turn. Chapter 89, finally on the shelves. Chapter 89 is now available. It will be released around 2:30 p.m. If you enjoyed it, please show your support. Thank you all. Chapter 90, The Sixth Soul Ring, All-Round Improvement. The plan had merit, but Lin Chuan had still underestimated Douluo's strength. The dragon claws, charged with the heavy earth element and laced with green phosphorus poison, struck the Silver Moon Wolf King with brutal force. Ice crystals on the beast's chest shattered with a crack, and the claws sank into its flesh. Blood matted the wolf's silver hair into clotted tangles as the green poison spread through its veins. Before the wolf could recover, a golden light swept across the clearing. A single arrow condensed from blazing gold pierced the Silver Moon Wolf King's chest with terrifying penetration. The impact nearly tore the beast apart, then more shots followed like thunder, and flames rolled over it until the black light that had surrounded it faded. The green phosphorus earth dragon, what Douluo had summoned, vanished. Lin Chuan dropped down from the treetop and landed beside Douluo. "Such powerful spiritual energy," Lin Chuan said. "I didn't expect it to be enough to crack my defenses. This silver wolf isn't just a 10,000-year soul beast. It's a mutant with spiritual attributes, and it can channel other elements. Are you sure you want me to absorb its soul ring?" "Of course," Lin Chuan replied. "This one suits me." Douluo nodded once and fell silent. He'd never truly seen the wolf's strength until now. Even though Lin Chuan had heard about it at Tianshui College, experiencing it up close left a different impression. Lin Chuan was powerful, but his true threat came when he fought as part of a team. The frontline attention grabber drew enemies in, while Lin Chuan struck from the back with deadly high-output arrows. Each shot was a nightmare for the target. The flames ebbed. The Silver Moon Wolf King lay charred and trembling on the ground, barely able to move. Its ice armor was gone, its breathing shallow. Just then, a distant, furious howl rose. Another pack approaching. "Lin, leave that to me. Absorb the soul ring without worrying," Douluo said, turning to meet the incoming golden wolves. Despite his modest frame, there was something reassuring about the way he walked forward. Lin Chuan smirked and shook his head. "Old poisonous snake still wants to look heroic at his age," he murmured. Then he turned back to the dying wolf. It was time to absorb the ring. He stepped forward slowly, eyes fixed on the Silver Moon Wolf King. He was only 2 paces away when the wolf suddenly raised its head, glaring at him. A violent mental surge slammed into the air. "I've been watching you for a long time," the wolf seemed to cry, and a wave of psychic pressure rolled outward. At the same instant, Lin Chuan shifted his stance and moved with a single strange step. He vanished and reappeared an instant ahead of where he had been. A spear thrust out, cold metal flashing, and it drove straight through the Silver Moon Wolf King's skull. Lin Chuan exhaled and patted his own temple. Where his thoughts had been muddled a moment before, clarity had returned. The wolf's trick had been to use its spiritual power to scramble the minds of those nearby, forcing confusion so that friend and foe were indistinguishable. Had Lin Chuan not anticipated such a sneak attack and relied on his own strong mental fortitude, the wolf might have succeeded. 10,000-year soul beasts are incredibly wise. It had nearly pulled a fast one. It was a pity. Lin Chuan was better prepared. "Xiao Chuan, are you all right?" Duguyan called, landing nearby on her heels. "I'm fine," Lin Chuan said with a smile, rubbing his head. "I expected that. Yanzi, I'm going to absorb the soul ring now. Keep watch for me." "We'll handle it, me and Grandpa. Absorb it with confidence," Duguyan promised without hesitation. They moved the corpse up to the treetop. Lin Chuan sat cross-legged, closed his eyes, and circulated his soul power. His mental force reached out and pulled the black soul ring from the wolf's body. It was a 10,000-year soul ring, but unlike any he'd seen before. In its deep black surface flickered 7 kinds of light, the traces of 7 elemental attributes. Lin Chuan had studied such things enough times that he recognized the display at a glance. "Begin," he murmured. He flipped his right hand, and the Luoxia bow appeared, trembling faintly in his palm. He drew the soul ring toward the bow with a tug of spiritual energy. When the ring slid into place, massive power flooded him. A halo of multicolored light burst out from his body, expanding 10 feet around him before slowly fading. From the outside, Lin Chuan looked like a brilliant orb of shifting colors. The 10,000-year ring's full soul vibration hadn't yet begun, but the 7 elemental forces inside it erupted at once: water, fire, earth, wind, light, darkness, and the thunder attribute that emerges when a ring matures to 10,000 years. It was almost overwhelming. The Silver Moon Wolf King's soul ring was truly exceptional. Its affinity spanned multiple elements in a way that bordered on unique. This feeling is incredible," Lin Chuan whispered, eyes clenched as he steered his power. The Luoxia bow began to absorb and harmonize the incoming elemental energies, easing the assault on his body. But the remaining consciousness inside the soul ring launched one last desperate mental onslaught. Lin Chuan's own soul stood firm. He braced on the spiritual platform and blocked wave after wave of psychic shock. The wolf's last tug-of-war could not stem the tide. As the beast had been reduced to little more than a lingering soul, it was inevitably the first to be exhausted. After a short, agonizing struggle, the black soul ring was successfully refined. The Luoxia bow took the ring into itself and merged. A surge of soul power shot through Lin Chuan. The fusion of the 6th soul ring catapulted his soul power into level 64, the threshold of the 6-ring soul emperor. He opened his eyes as dawn was breaking. The Star-Do Great Forest lay thick with mist. The eastern sun was just beginning to rise behind the haze. Everything felt damp and humid, and drops of water clung to his clothes. The bow's internal warmth spread over him, drying the moisture and filling him with a steady, comforting heat. "Xiao Chuan, you're awake. How do you feel?" Duguyan stepped forward immediately. "Lin boy, you finally woke up. I witnessed another miracle today," Dugubo said, curious and pleased. Lin Chuan bowed in thanks. "Thank you, seniors. It's all because of our joint effort. What soul skills did the 50,000-year beast give you?" Dugubo asked, eager. "Wait, let me check," Lin Chuan answered. He concentrated inward, feeling the changes ripple through him with the Luoxia bow in his hands. The elemental ties between himself and the world had deepened. "You carefully felt the world and benefited greatly. Your understanding of the mysteries of the water element has deepened significantly." "You carefully felt the world and benefited greatly. Your understanding of the mysteries of the fire element has deepened significantly." "You carefully felt the world and gained something. Your understanding of the mysteries of the earth element has slightly deepened." "You carefully felt the world and gained something. Your understanding of the mysteries of the light element has slightly deepened." "You carefully felt the world and gained something. Your understanding of the mysteries of the dark element has slightly deepened." 7 elements swirled in Lin Chuan's awareness. The inducements for wind, fire, thunder, and water had grown particularly strong. Earth, light, and darkness had also shown noticeable improvement. That meant he had 3 more mysteries of all things open to further comprehension. Even without a new soul skill, increasing affinity across 7 attributes was a major boon. The soul skill the ring granted, however, was equally valuable. In addition to a passive increase in soul power, the Silver Moon Wolf King's active skill was called Soul Destroying Arrow. It fired an arrow carrying a psychic shock that struck at the target's soul. Those hit would take burning mental damage and fall into confusion. The weaker a target's mental defenses, the more devastating the effect. Unlike Lin Chuan's previous physical-focused attacks, this skill struck directly at the soul itself, making it hard to defend against and affecting both mind and body. "Sk, that's enviable," Douluo said, his voice suddenly sour with a touch of jealousy. From what he'd heard, being hit by such an arrow would be a nightmare. Spiritual soul masters were notoriously hard to deal with. Lin Chuan grinned, pleased. "Thanks to you both. If you hadn't helped, I might not have gotten this ring." Douluo smirked in reply, though the irritation didn't completely fade. "Since the soul ring is secured, let's leave this area quickly," Douluo advised. They were still in the central zone of the Stardew Great Forest. It was unwise to linger. Lin Chuan nodded and placed the Silver Moon Wolf King's body into his storage soul guide. The roomy internal space instantly felt more crowded. The three of them set off back toward Tianshui College. As they traveled, Lin Chuan sent part of his consciousness inward and checked his status. Name, Lin Chuan. Soul power, level 64, 6-ring Soul Emperor. Blessing, heaven rewards the diligent. Blessing of the Blue Star, 1 point of effort yields 1 point of return. Techniques, Tianshui Meditation Technique LV6. Guidance Technique, Ninefold Chaotic Source, level 3. Combat skills, Archery, Unity of Nature and Man. Spear Technique, Subtle. Sword Technique, Unity of Nature and Man. Boxing, Subtle. Body Technique, Unity of Nature and Man. Miscellaneous, Alchemy, Grade 4. Weapon Refining Abilities. Observation Hockey LV4. Thunderblade, level 3. Body Skill, Flowing Light, level 3. Soul Skills, First Soul Skill. Explosive Arrow LV4. Second Soul Skill, Ice Arrow of 4. Third Soul Skill, Wind and Rain of Arrows. LV4, Fourth Soul Skill, Thunder Arrow. LV3, Fifth Soul Skill, Golden Arrow. LV2, Sixth Soul Skill, Soul Destroying Arrow. LV1, Enlightenment, Mystery of Water of All Things, level 1. Mystery of Fire of All Things, level 1. The rise in soul power would also help his alchemy. Though he hadn't tested it yet, Lin Chuan felt confident that in this state he could refine a grade 4 pill. He smiled to himself, heart light. He had become stronger again. The feeling was undeniably intoxicating. Chapter 91, Tiando Royal Academy. They fled the Xingdou Great Forest in a hurry and didn't relax until the trees that had blocked out the sun fell away and sunlight poured back into the carriage. The constant tension had been exhausting. Once they left the forest behind, the three of them finally breathed easier. "Grandpa, can we stop in Tiando City on the way back?" Duguyan asked softly, leaning against the plush seat. Douluo blinked in surprise, then smiled. "That's fine. Depends on what you want. But Yanyan, why Tiando City all of a sudden?" "I want to go see Lingling," Douluo said, eyes bright. She glanced at Lin Chuan beside her with an expression so pleading it made him squirm. Unable to resist, he nodded quickly. "Okay, since it's on the way, we can stay in Tiando City a few days." "You're so good, Xiao Chuan." Douluo's face lit up. Douluo laughed and teased. "Oh, only this stinky boy is good, am I not?" The tease made the girl's cheeks color instantly. "No, Grandpa's good too," she protested, lowering her head coyly. The shy smile at the corner of her mouth only made her more charming. Lin Chuan felt awkward and amused at the same time. Fatigue settled over them. Conversation dwindled and silence fell. Douluo gradually leaned against Lin Chuan's shoulder and dozed off. He watched the long lashes of the girl beside him and did not push her away. Instead, he summoned the Luoxia bow and closed his eyes for a moment. A quiet note of feedback flickered in his mind. "You have paid careful attention to the world and gained much. Your understanding of the mystery of the fire element has deepened." After some bumpy travel, Tiando City came into view. This was Lin Chuan's second time here. The first visit had been hurried and he hadn't seen much. Now, with a few days to spare, he felt it sensible to combine rest with a little exploration. They stayed at the residence the Tiando Empire had provided for Douluo. "Yanyan, you two go shopping," Douluo said, standing in the doorway. "Don't stay out too late." Then he retreated into his room and disappeared for the afternoon, part hermit, part doting grandparent. He knew when to leave the young alone. "Let's go," Duguyan whispered, trying to sound casual while bubbling inside. They strolled the busy streets of Tiando City. "What are we doing first?" Lin Chuan asked. Duguyan considered, then grinned. "How about I take you to Tiando Royal Academy? I'll introduce you to a friend." "Sure." Lin Chuan had no objections. The academy wasn't in the city proper. Duguyan explained that the school had been placed outside to avoid the city's distractions and to preserve a discipline for cultivation, much like Tianshui College, but on a grander scale. It was only about 20 kilometers away. After an hour's travel, they reached the foot of the mountain. Lin Chuan tilted his head and looked up. The peak that cradled the academy rose higher than any mountain near Tianshui College. It was the foundation of the Tiando Empire's prestige, vast, green, and encircled by clear streams and dense foliage. "That's a big mountain," he murmured. "Come on, Xiaochuan, I'll show you around," Duguyan said, delighted. They followed a tree-lined path up the hillside, enjoying the fresh mountain air. Before they had gone far, a dozen students in pale yellow uniforms stepped out from behind the trees and blocked their way. "Stop! Who are you?" the leader demanded in a stern voice. Lin Chuan arched an eyebrow. Duguyan, however, stepped forward with a scowl and a hard edge in her voice. "What? Avalanche, less than a year away, and you don't recognize me?" The leader rubbed his eyes, and then his expression changed from disdain to embarrassment. "Sister Yan, I'm sorry. We didn't recognize you. You've changed." It was true. Duguyan's hair, once short and dark purple, had been restyled and now fell black and straight. She looked different enough that a casual glance might miss her. "Sister Yan, what brings you back?" another student asked, fawning. "Do I have to report my comings and goings to you?" Duguyan shot back, and then flashed a smile so dangerous it made the leader's face go white. "Kidding. Of course you can't stop me. Tiando Royal Academy will always welcome you." The leader, Shui Beng, fell into obsequiousness at once. Duguyan laughed and turned away, instantly soft and sweet when she faced Lin Chuan. The change was so sudden it would have surprised anyone watching. The other students hurried aside with servile smiles and watched them pass, relieved. Lin Chuan let his gaze flick over the group. The leader gave the impression of a cowardly playboy, but Lin Chuan saw through that public mask. Shui Beng willingly put on the appearance of stupidity and humiliation, even when it cost him personally. That kind of controlled performance, Lin Chuan thought, revealed someone capable of achieving much. He admired the resolve behind the act, but had no desire to stay connected to it. As the students melted back into the undergrowth, Shui Beng fell quiet. His pride stung. "Why did Duguyan come back now?" one of his juniors asked in a low voice. "How should I know?" he snapped, then ground his teeth. "She left without a word and then suddenly returns. I don't like it." His thoughts flicked to the boy by her side. If she'd returned carrying a companion, there might be a reason. An idea formed: find someone to test the situation. Meanwhile, Duguyan led Lin Chuan deeper along a winding trail. The air grew thick with humidity and the scent of green growth. "Almost there," she said, smiling. They pushed through dense foliage and then water gurgled in the underbrush. A clear spring opened up ahead. At its edge, a young woman sat cross-legged. She looked to be in her early 20s, slender and composed. A black veil obscured her face and long blue hair fanned around her shoulders like waves. "Lingling's here," Duguyan said, bright with relief. The woman at the spring stirred, long lashes fluttering as she slowly opened her eyes. "Yan?" Her voice held stunned recognition. Duguyan crossed the last few paces and took the woman's hand, joy in her face. "Long time no see, Lingling." Ye Lingling stood, but her expression didn't change. "Long time no see, Yan. Why did you come?" "Because I missed you," Duguyan said, eager. "I happened to be passing through Tiando City. How have you been since I left? Are you doing all right?" Ye Lingling's reply was soft but distant. "I'm fine, same as before." Cold and concise, it was the same reticent Ye Lingling Duguyan had always known. Duguyan sighed and chided gently. "You're still the same. Couldn't you smile more? Don't you get lonely at school if you stay like this?" Ye Lingling didn't answer, but her blank expression made Duguyan's brow crease. "Never mind. I'll introduce you to someone," she decided, forcing a brighter tone as she glanced at Lin Chuan. Lin Chuan met Ye Lingling's veiled gaze and felt a quiet curiosity. Her aura was strong but restrained, like a coiled spring. Whatever lay under the veil, whatever had happened while Duguyan was away, it would take time to learn. For now, the reunion had been made. What came next, they would discover together. Chapter 92, Yanzi, take me away. Duguyan tugged Ye Lingling forward and steered her toward Lin Chuan. Xiaochuan, introduce us. This is Ye Lingling, an old friend from Tiando Royal Academy. Lin Chuan glanced up, hesitated for a beat, then managed, Lingling, this is Lin Chuan, my friend. There was an odd pause that made the introduction feel awkward. Ye Lingling's curiosity flickered, but she said nothing. Hello, I'm Lin Chuan. Nice to meet you. He smiled but didn't offer his hand, a deliberate avoidance of physical contact until he knew the other person's habits. Ye Lingling nodded once, cool and composed. Her voice was distant. The little silence that followed was uncomfortable, so Lin Chuan suggested to Duguyan, Yanzi, you and Lingling haven't caught up in ages. Talk away. I'll stroll for a bit. All right, but Xiaochuan, don't go too far. Duguyan knew Ye Lingling's temperament well. She was the kind of person who couldn't even chit-chat easily with her own team, let alone a stranger. Lin Chuan grinned and jumped up onto a low tree trunk, leaning his back to the bark. A soft breeze ruffled the leaves. He could see the landscape in the distance. A rare, lazy contentment washed over him. It had been a long time since he'd felt this relaxed, to let his shoulders drop and simply enjoy the moment. He hummed to himself, closed his eyes, and let the quiet settle. Don't worry about him, Lingling, Duguyan said as she tugged Ye Lingling along. We haven't had a proper chat in ages. Take the day off from training. Let's talk. Ye Lingling didn't refuse. The two girls walked to the edge of a pool, found a smooth, big stone to sit on, and started to speak in low voices. Mostly Duguyan talked, and Ye Lingling listened. The three of them, the boy resting against the tree and the two girls by the water, made a picturesque scene, leaves whispering, sunlight dappling the ground. It felt peaceful. That peace didn't last long. A few sets of footsteps approached. Lin Chuan opened one eye and watched figures appear on the road. Leading them was a young man with an impatient, eager face. The moment he saw Duguyan and Ye Lingling by the pool, his features lit up. Yanzi, he called. The figure flashed over and stopped in front of Duguyan. Yu Tianheng, long time no see. Duguyan looked surprised for a heartbeat, then offered a friendly greeting. Yu Tianheng barely registered that flicker of surprise. He was all smiles. Long time no see, Yanzi. We've all missed you. Since you're back in town, are you coming back to the academy? He asked, hopeful. Duguyan shook her head without hesitation. No, I only passed through Tiando City and wanted to see Lingling. I'll be leaving in a few days. The smile on Yu Tianheng's face froze. Yanzi, why did you change schools? The academy has great resources, excellent mimicry facilities, and the Soul Master competition finals are coming up. With me as captain, we could definitely win. The others chimed in, piling on the invitations and flattery. Sister Yan, come back! You don't know how gloomy the captain's been since you left. He's lost weight and can't concentrate. We miss you so much. It was the earnest, practiced kind of team pleading. They'd spent enough time together for those emotions to be genuine. Duguyan looked touched, but she still shook her head gently. I'm sorry. I won't be transferring back. I enjoyed training with you all, but I have other pursuits now. And I'm sorry, Captain. I know how you feel, but I already like someone. Please don't waste your time. Her voice was apologetic but firm. It hit Yu Tianheng hard. He went pale, then tried to force a smile. Yanzi, are you joking? I'm not joking. I can't force my feelings. I'm sorry. Her words were like a blade, and the silence that followed was heavy. One of Yu Tianheng's teammates, worried, asked, Captain, are you all right? Yu Tianheng ignored him and pressed on in hoarse tones. Who is he? Don't get me wrong. I just want to see the man who captured your heart, Yanzi. Before Duguyan could answer, Ye Lingling's gaze drifted instinctively toward Lin Chuan. That tiny movement didn't go unnoticed. Following Ye Lingling's glance, the group saw Lin Chuan perched on the tree trunk. Who's he? Someone asked. He's not wearing the academy uniform. He's not one of ours. Could he be the person Yanzi mentioned? That would mean. Realization spread through the group. Yu Tianheng's expression twisted into a complicated mix. Confusion, unbelief, hurt, and hot jealousy. He could feel the emotions roiling inside him like an approaching storm. Yanzi, is he the one? He pointed at Lin Chuan, seeking confirmation. This time, Du Guyan nodded without hesitation. Yes, now that you've seen him, I hope you understand. Yu Tianheng opened his mouth, but Shimo, another member of the Tiando team, jumped in first. Sister Yan, what's so special about this guy? Aside from being handsome, he's nothing compared to our captain. The captain is a direct descendant of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. He's much more than a pretty stranger. Shimo jabbed a finger at Lin Chuan. His face was full of disdain. Du Guyan's expression darkened immediately. Shut up, Shimo. I'm teammates with you. I don't have to argue, but say such a thing again, and I won't be so polite. All right, Shimo muttered, restrained by the hint of danger in her tone. Yu Tianheng didn't want to press a fight, but he did want to prove a point. He stepped forward and looked Lin Chuan in the eye. I'm Yu Tianheng. Let me see what you're made of. Lin Chuan hopped down from the trunk and met him calmly. I'm Lin Chuan. I'm a friend of Yanzi's. There was none of the theatrical bravado you might expect. Both men were restrained. Yu Tianheng's voice was low and edged with challenge. You're a soul master too, right? I want to spar. I want to see what Yanzi sees in you. Yu Tianheng. Du Guyan's frown deepened. She didn't like the tone. Relax, Yanzi, Lin Chuan said softly, reaching to touch her arm in reassurance. It's just a spar. If Brother Yu wants it, I won't refuse. Thank you. Then let's go to the Academy's soul fighting stage. Lin Chuan shook his head slightly. There's no need. Yu Tianheng signaled his team to make space anyway. Du Guyan pulled Ye Lingling a little farther back. The worry in her eyes was absent. No one understood Lin Chuan's strength like she did. Even if Yu Tianheng was a recognized genius from the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, he was still far beneath Lin Chuan. Some of the Tiando members bristled when Lin Chuan declined to state his spirit level. Who does he think he is? Don't ignore the rules. Captain, teach him a lesson, they urged. The crowd chanted. Blue Electric Tyrannosaurus, possess! Thunder rolled, and Yu Tianheng's arms rippled outward as his fighting spirit manifested. His sleeves tore from the strain. His arms grew half a foot, purple scales snaking over them, and his palms turned into jagged dragon claws. I invoke Thunder's fury, he roared. A third soul ring flashed around him. Thunder clung to his body, and he slipped into a berserk, power-enhanced state. Then he became a white blur and lunged forward. Thunder Dragon Claw. He aimed his electrified claw straight at Lin Chuan, throwing his full force behind the strike. Lin Chuan's palm gleamed. The silver moon spear formed in his hand, humming with its own lightning. He thrust, and a crackling thunderbolt exploded from the spear. Thunder shock! The thunderous sound rolled through the hills. Light seared the air as the spear swept, and with overwhelming force, the spear pierced Yu Tianheng's shoulder. A wave of lightning tore through him, and he was sent flying backward, slamming into a stand of trees. Lin Chuan stood with the spear in hand, his clothes fluttering in the breeze. If he'd wanted to finish the fight, that blow could have killed. He'd held back. Yu Tianheng spat a mouthful of blood, hauled himself upright, pale and shaken. Then, with a small, broken smile, he forced words out. You won. I'm not as good as you. Yanzi, your choice was right. If I'd been the one for her, I might have held her back. His voice faltered. Yanzi is a good girl. Treat her well. I wish you happiness. After saying that, surrender finally broke him. His limbs slackened and he collapsed into unconsciousness. Lin Chuan blinked. The scene felt oddly familiar. Why did it feel like this had happened before? Chapter 93. Shui Qinghe, Qian Renshui. After Jushin Haitang finished treating him, Yu Tianheng was bundled up and carried away by the Shi brothers. Before they left, the rest of the Tiando Academy students looked at Lin Chuan with hostile, accusatory eyes, so much that he almost felt like a villain in a romance story, the man who had tried to steal someone's love. Fortunately, Yu Tianheng had fainted in time. If he'd stayed conscious and ranted, Lin Chuan might have had to worry about what the young genius would blurt out. Lin Chuan let his gaze drift away. The silver moon spear he'd been holding dissolved into a stream of light and flowed back into his body. He didn't make a fuss about what had happened. Although Yu Tianheng looked badly hurt, his hand had been spared, and after Jushin Haitang's treatment, there should be no lasting damage. Yanzi, keep talking, he called lightly. He vaulted back up into the tree and sat again. Yi Lingling's eyes flashed with curiosity. She was baffled by Lin Chuan. Yu Tianheng was practically the top genius at Tiando Royal Academy, partnered with a high-grade beast spirit like the blue electric Tyrannosaurus, someone almost untouchable by his peers. Yet he had been felled in a single move. If she hadn't seen it herself, Ye Lingling would never have believed it. Du Guyan noticed Ye Lingling's reaction and seemed suddenly thoughtful. Then she smiled a little strangely. Lingling, let's continue. Look at my hair. Doesn't it look really different than before? She asked. I'll tell you a secret. It has something to do with my martial spirit. My spirit was defective before. Du Guyan spoke casually, as if divulging something small. At first, Ye Lingling's curiosity was merely piqued, but as Du Guyan went on, the girl's interest deepened into something more serious. For a time, the loneliness that had wrapped around Ye Lingling loosened. Surprise and warmth filled her, but the warmth faded quickly, replaced by a new anxiety. Halfway up the mountain, at the main campus of Tiando Royal Academy, the sight of Yu Tianheng being carried back in a disheveled state had spread. As a member of the Academy's first team, his movements drew attention. His hurried descent of the mountain had already caused a stir. Seeing him returned like this set off a flurry of whispers. A few students tried to ask the Shi brothers what had happened, but they were politely but firmly turned away. Rumors branched out in every direction. Shi Beng had been watching the commotion quietly. He had deliberately let it be known, through the Shi brothers, that Du Guyan had suddenly come back. He'd done this to plant a seed and watch how things developed. If he wanted to test someone's capabilities, he couldn't be seen doing it himself. Most students at Tiando Academy knew Yu Tianheng had been pursuing Du Guyan. Letting that rumor spread was the most reasonable cover. But Shui Beng hadn't expected Yu Tianheng to end up so humiliated. He furrowed his brow, running possibilities through his mind. If what he suspected was true, then the one who defeated Yu Tianheng would be a rare talent, someone he might be able to recruit. He would have to discuss it with his uncle. A flash of anger and grief crossed his face. My good brother, is this all you're doing? In a special training building on campus, meanwhile, a different kind of conversation was already underway. The room was a mimetic training chamber forged from top-grade materials, soundproof, airtight, and heavily fortified so that nothing inside could affect the outside world and vice versa. The ceiling was set with a crystal that absorbed sunlight and amplified its energy, ideal for certain rare martial spirits. A blonde girl with an arresting beauty sat cross-legged beneath that crystal. Light trickled down and seeped into her with each breath. Young master, someone called. A ripple of gold swept across the girl's body. Her lashes fluttered and she opened her eyes slowly. Uncle Shi, what is it? A tall, blade-straight man appeared in the room. He bowed low. Young master, there's news from Tiando Academy. Yu Tianheng of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon faction is suspected to have been defeated. The blonde's interest snapped to life. Defeated? Do we know how? Not yet. I don't dare go too far myself, but Du Guyan, the old poisoner's granddaughter, has suddenly returned. It's likely connected. Du Guyan? The blonde's eyes narrowed. Qian Renshui, both as the young master of Wuhun Palace and as the crown prince of the Tiando Empire, knew the ties between Poison Douluo and the Tiando Empire well. Du Guyan's abrupt transfer to another school had been a concern before. When the market had been flooded with strange elixirs and soul guides, she had sent people to investigate Tianshui College, but had found little. Yu Tianheng wouldn't have challenged Du Guyan. Du Guyan was no match for him. Someone else must have been involved. Uncle Shi, send people to find out everything you can, she ordered. Yes, young master. The middle-aged man, Snakespear Douluo, bowed. Also, Uncle Sixue is here. I'll ask after the details. Qian Renshui's reply was cool and commanding. A golden glow washed over her, and for a moment her feminine face vanished, replaced by the form of a young man in his late 20s with long black hair, Shuo Qinghe, the current prince of the Tiando Empire. Uncle Sixue, let's go! Yes, young master, answered a hoarse voice from nowhere, though no one appeared. Back near the pond, Lin Chuan leaned against the tree, glancing occasionally toward the water, an expression of helpless amusement on his face. He'd come to appreciate just how long women could talk. After months apart, it was as if they had endless things to catch up on. Huh? His eyes flashed red, instincts picking up a new breath in the distance. A titled Douluo? Lin Chuan didn't know if the Tiando imperial family maintained a titled Douluo. It hadn't appeared in the original records, but reality often differed from the book. If a titled Douluo had come here, was it from the imperial family or from the spirit hall? He kept his attention locked on the incoming presence. The newcomer stopped at a reasonable distance, not coming any closer. If Tiando's own titled Douluo did come, they would likely avoid coming to the academy. They guarded the imperial city itself. Given that, it was more likely a spirit hall titled Douluo, perhaps one of the two that accompanied Qian Renshui, the snake spear Douluo Shilong or the thorny porpoise Douluo Sixshui. Was the spirit hall's interest because Yu Tianheng had been defeated? Lin Chuan suspected Qian Renshui's presence had drawn them. He blew a soft breath through his teeth and let the thought rest. With the Tiando Empire's backing, the truth of today's events would be easy to piece together. He feared he would soon be noticed. Ning Fengji could already guess part of the truth. Others were hardly fools. Having been secluded in the yin-yang eye of ice and fire, Lin Chuan had been cut off from the world and remained largely unknown to the major powers, but that anonymity wouldn't last. He made a quiet plan. He had to be careful. Strengthen his soul power, merge the mysteries of all things, water and fire, so he would have the confidence to face a titled Douluo. The Spirit Hall's drive to unify the continent would soon pull everything into the storm. Any who threatened them could be targeted, surrounded, or eliminated. The elite competition among Soul Master academies would be the opening salvo. If he didn't want to be swept up, he had to grow stronger. The incoming breath passed without incident. Lin Chuan withdrew his gaze. Time moved on, the sky dimmed, and at last Dugu Yan and Ye Lingling finished their conversation, reluctant to part. "Lingling, we'll leave for now," Dugu Yan said as they started down the mountain. Ye Lingling nodded, lips moving. "I'll go home tomorrow and talk it over with my mother." Dugu Yan's face lit up. "No problem. I'll talk to my grandfather for you." "Yanzi, thank you." They said goodbye. Lin Chuan walked down the mountain with Dugu Yan. Her steps were light, and she glanced at him with her usual easy smile. "Xiao Chuan, I'll tell you about it back in Tiando City. I really need your help." "Okay." Lin Chuan nodded, not pressing for more. He'd hear about it soon enough. Chapter 94. The Strengths and Flaws of the Nine-Hearted Begonia. Night had fallen by the time Lin Chuan and Dugu Yan returned to Tiando City. They stopped for a quick dinner and then went straight to Dugu Yan's room, where Dugu Bo was already waiting at the table with a questioning look. "Yan Yan, why did you ask me here?" he asked. Dugu Yan met his gaze calmly. "Grandpa, I invited you because Xiao Chuan and I visited Tiando Royal Academy today to see Lingling. We talked about my situation." Both Dugu Bo and Lin Chuan raised their eyebrows. "What did you tell her?" Dugu Bo demanded. Dugu Yan didn't try to hide anything. "I told Lingling about my martial soul. Not everything, just enough to explain why you might be able to help the Nine-Hearted Begonia's problem. I didn't mention Xiao Chuan." Lin Chuan listened without much reaction, but Dugu Bo's face tightened. "Yan Yan, you're being reckless. You can't just blurt this out." "Grandpa, don't be angry. I know how serious it is. I only said what was necessary and nothing about Xiao Chuan." Dugu Yan's tone was apologetic but firm. Dugu Bo huffed, clearly exasperated but curious. "So what do you want to do?" "I think we should ask the Ye family for help," Dugu Yan said. "Grandpa, you have a good relationship with Lingling's family, and Lingling is my friend. If anyone can help make up for the Nine-Hearted Begonia's shortcomings, it would be them." Dugu Bo's expression softened when he heard that. He had dealings with the Yi family before, more precisely with Lingling's grandfather, and knew their martial souls had their own peculiarities. He'd asked the Yi family for help in the past, and though the Nine-Hearted Begonia was an extraordinary healing spirit, it came with hard limits. "You told her about the Begonia's flaws?" he asked. "Yes," Dugu Yan answered. Lin Chuan cleared his throat and explained what he knew. The Nine-Hearted Begonia is an auxiliary spirit, not an all-purpose amplifier like the Qibao Glazed Pagoda. Its healing ability is phenomenal. Ning Fengji even called it miraculous, but it has obvious weaknesses. It can't detoxify. It can't regenerate severed fingers, though it can reattach a whole undamaged limb. Most importantly, its inheritance is cursed. In each generation, only one person can be the begonia's spirit master at a time. When a new master awakens, the previous one will die. That's not something I can change. Dugu Yan's face fell. Even Xiao Chuan can't fix that? Lin Chuan shrugged. I can refine elixirs and evolve some spirits, but that's not the same as changing the intrinsic rules tied to a spirit's bloodline. The begonia's limitation seems bound up with its essence, more like a hereditary condition or curse. It would take research and possibly rare materials to even attempt to alter it, if it's possible at all. Dugu Bo stroked his beard, thinking. What about evolution? Can it be evolved into something else? It's uncertain, Lin Chuan said. Some spirits need specific catalysts, like the earth dragon melon, which contains dragon blood and can trigger evolutions for certain kinds of dragon-linked spirits. The nine-hearted begonia doesn't appear to have that kind of obvious catalyst. I'd have to study it, maybe test a few approaches, and even then there's no guarantee. And any attempt that tampers with a spirit's essence is risky. Seeing the hesitation, Dugu Bo changed tactics. Still, the Ye family owes me a favor. If we could do something, anything, that improves the begonia's practical usefulness, it would be a good bargaining chip. Despite its limits, a begonia's spirit master is an enormous asset in healing. If Lingling were willing to transfer to Tianshui College, she'd be a huge boon. Dugu Yan brightened. Lingling did say she'd be willing to transfer. Lin Chuan almost smiled at the way the conversation swung toward saving the academy. Tiando Royal Academy was already bleeding talent, the instructor gone, a control spirit master transferred out, and now the auxiliary spirit master might leave, too. I'll see what I can do for your friend, he said carefully. But don't expect miracles. If I'm going to try anything, Lingling should be mentally prepared for the possibility that it won't work. Dugu Yan nodded eagerly. I'll tell her to come in 2 days. They were about to call it a night when Lin Chuan suddenly stiffened. Dugu Bo's attention had snapped to the window and then to the garden outside. How bold, he muttered, rising. A mouse daring to pry where it shouldn't. Senior, calm down, Lin Chuan said quickly, laying a hand on Dugu Bo's arm. They could be trying to draw you out. Dugu Bo inhaled and let a cold, restrained pressure ripple around him. The presence that had been lingering outside sensed it and melted away as if it had never been there. Dugu Bo relaxed his aura, but his expression remained grave. There's a titled Douluo in Tiando City, and he came looking for me. He might be from the Spirit Hall. Lin Chuan had noticed the same thing earlier at the academy, that particular aura. He hadn't expected the man to follow them here at night. We should avoid contact, Dugu Bo said. Both of you stay in Tiando City. Meet with the Ye family, then return to Tianshui College. Don't expose yourselves. Understood, Lin Chuan answered. He didn't want to draw attention to Qian Renshui or to Wuhan Palace. As long as he kept his head down and didn't provoke them, things would be easier, at least in theory. At the prince's mansion, where the young royal Shui Qinghe handled state affairs by day, Qian Renshui returned to his private chamber and slipped back into his true identity. The daily masquerade was exhausting, but it was necessary for Wuhan Palace's plans. Uncle Thornblood, is Uncle Snake back? He asked after a short rest. Not yet, but he should be soon, a thick buzzing voice answered as a shadowy, blood-stained figure materialized behind him. Before he finished, another person entered the room. Little Lord, the newcomer reported. Qian Renshui's expression sharpened. Uncle Snake, what's the situation? I followed your orders, the snake-speared Douluo said. I sent people to Tianshui Academy, and I slipped into Old Poison's mansion in Tiando City just now. Old Poison? Qian Renshui's voice tightened. Unfortunately, I was noticed before I could learn much, Uncle Snake said. Old Poison is very cautious. He didn't force us out, but he did notice we were there, and he's not alone. Besides Dugu Yan, there was another young man with her. Qian Renshui's face went cold. The other young man could only be the one they'd seen elsewhere, the same presence that had raised a red flag for Lin Chuan. Whatever scheme Wuhan Palace was weaving, it just got more complicated. Chapter 95, Sudden Enlightenment. It's good it wasn't exposed. Qian Renshui exhaled, relief flooding her features. She had been hiding in the Tiando Empire for 20 years. If her secret had been revealed now, everything she had worked for would have been for nothing. The situation was frightening, but not entirely bad. If Yu Tianheng had indeed been defeated by that strange boy, and if Du Guyan's abrupt transfer of school had something to do with him, then the boy might prove useful. Snake Spear Douluo, Uncle Shi, stood before her, fidgeting as if holding something back. Qian Renshui noticed immediately and urged, "Uncle Shi, don't hold back. If there's something, just say it." "Young miss," the Snake Spear Douluo replied reluctantly. "I didn't actually fight Dugubo earlier, but he felt like a grave threat. That old poisonous man's strength has improved a great deal, perhaps even beyond me." Qian Renshui's pretty face registered surprise. The Gorgon Douluo beside her looked equally startled. Dugubo was widely regarded as the weakest titled Douluo. Snake Spear Douluo's soul power was only one level higher. Yet Dugubo's mutated martial soul combined both the toughness of a weapon soul and the ferocity of a beast soul. His physical strength and combat ability had always been formidable, so why would he now make a titled Douluo feel threatened? Raising a soul power level was no small thing. It usually took years. "Are you sure?" Qian Renshui asked coldly but seriously. Snake Spear Douluo nodded solemnly. "It's hard to accept, but that's how it feels. Dugubo's presence wasn't much weaker than Elder Demon Bear or Elder Ghost Leopard. Did he suddenly improve so much, or did he gain some kind of opportunity?" Qian Renshui tapped the table with a thoughtful expression. Rumors tied the strange pills appearing on the market to Dugubo. Could they be linked to his change? The three of them fell silent, the only sound the tapping of her fingers. "I understand," she said after a moment. "Do not provoke Dugubo for now. We don't want to alert him. But find out everything you can about that young man who beat Yu Tianheng, his origins, identity, background, any connection to Dugubo. I want every scrap of information." A small, calculating smile crossed her lips. Whoever had defeated Yu Tianheng must be formidable, and such a person could be an asset. "Yes!" Snake Spear Douluo clasped his fists and vanished like a shadow. Qian Renshui felt some relief, but she could not rely solely on him. She would need to act too. "Find a chance to get close to Du Guyan," she murmured to herself. "If I approach as Shui Qinghe, she won't be suspicious. That's perfect." Lin Chuan, oblivious to Qian Renshui's plotting, had shut his door tight. He didn't rest. From the storage soul guide, he brought out the carcass of a 50,000-year-old Silver Moon Wolf King. The massive body filled the room, and the air thickened with the scent of old blood. He had no time to deal with it earlier, so he took this chance to dissect it. A soul beast that old still held many valuable parts. He activated his soul power, and the shadow of Ye Ying's twin swords flickered into being. The thick blades cut through the wolf's flesh, skinning, bleeding, debonning with practiced efficiency. Pieces of meat were carved neatly into various sizes. 3 jars of blood, rank with the tang of old meat, were filled. With a hard metallic clang, the blade struck something in the skull. Lin Chuan's eyes brightened. After shaving away the last bits of tissue, a shimmering skull lay in his palm, rippling faintly with spiritual fluctuations. As expected, it's a soul bone, a skull. Lucky. Lin Chuan couldn't help a small, satisfied smile. This was the 4th soul bone he'd ever obtained. Besides the bones he had gained through other extraordinary circumstances, only 2 had actually dropped from soul beasts. Even titled Douluo often lacked such bones. Often they had none. Its rarity made it invaluable. "I'll save this for refining a magic weapon," he decided. He didn't want to absorb the skull's power directly and replace parts of himself. He preferred to craft, to preserve the original. With the skull, paired with the right auxiliary materials, he could make a stronger artifact. Tiando City's market would be a good place to find what he needed. He stored the remaining parts back into the soul guide, then breathed out a wisp of golden flame to burn away the blood and lingering stench. He sat cross-legged on the bed, placed the Luoxia bow on his lap, and closed his eyes to cultivate. "You have benefited greatly from your serious practice. Your understanding of the mystery of water of all things deepens. You have benefited greatly from your serious practice. Your understanding of the mystery of fire of all things deepens." Time slipped by when he entered that state. By early morning, Lin Chuan was out in the courtyard practicing sword techniques. Ye Ying's twin swords roared like twin volcanoes, flames wrapping his body until he seemed like a god of fire. His moves were fast, fierce, and crushingly assertive, an overwhelming pressure. Douluo had woken early as well and stood to the side to watch. He had no idea how Lin Chuan had arrived at this power and hoped to glean something from watching. Lin Chuan didn't notice. He was absorbed in his own world. No, still wrong. He shook his head mid-swing. Though his swordplay was swift and relentless, he felt something off. The initial strikes were brutal and dominating, but they lacked sustain. If he relied purely on violent power against a long, evenly matched fight, an opponent might adapt and find weaknesses. The thunder knife technique contained many different forms, but if they became predictable, it's only a matter of time before a strong foe exploited that pattern. A sword isn't only for killing, he muttered to himself, recalling an old maxim. It must conceal its edge as well. The best techniques combined yin and yang, hardness and softness, so a strike could shift and adapt. Perhaps I should alternate the fire and water mysteries, he thought. He took a steady breath and swung his twin swords, the blades blazing. After 2 fiery strokes, the flames faded, and rotating water followed on the next strike. Under continuous maneuvers, fire and water flowed alternately across his weapons, their interplay unpredictable and seamless. Watching it, even Douluo frowned in confusion. The whole display had the rhythm of a dance more than a practice drill, but slowly, imperceptibly, change settled in. You have seriously practiced the sword technique and comprehended its true meaning. You have benefited greatly. Your realm in the sword technique has improved. Your proficiency with the thunder knife has slightly increased. Through sword practice, you have deepened your understanding of the mystery of water of all things. Through sword practice, you have deepened your understanding of the mystery of fire of all things. You have comprehended both the water and fire mysteries through sword practice and found their similarities. The fusion between the two has slightly increased. Lin Chuan felt the shift immediately. The fire mystery, once only ferocious and all-consuming, now bore a trace of restraint, a water-borne continuity that made it both fierce and enduring. The water mystery, once soft and yielding, gained a streak of hardness. They were not simply alternating, they had begun to blend. Yes, this is it, he smiled, satisfied. This was the path he'd intended. With more practice, he began to master the interplay of the two mysteries. Though both were still at the first level, their combined force had grown noticeably, and his overall combat effectiveness had improved. Boy Lin, Douluo remarked in a tone tinged with envy, no matter how many times I watch, you never fail to surprise. You're powerful in your field. Lin Chuan smiled but said nothing. Douluo shook his head. Forget it. I can't learn it just by watching. It's impossible to grasp someone else's field like that. Might as well focus on improving my own soul power. At that moment, Douluo appeared, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Grandpa, Xiaochuan, you're up. Yanyan, you're awake, Douluo acknowledged, then turned to Lin Chuan. Look how diligent Lin is, getting up early to practice. You should work harder. I know, Grandpa. Douluo stuck out her tongue playfully but nodded obediently. The three of them ate breakfast together. Xiaochuan, do you have any plans today? Douluo asked, her lips pursed, clearly curious about what he intended to do. Lin Chuan didn't hide it. I'm going to the Tiando City Market to see if I can buy some things I need. Oh, then I happen to know a good place that will definitely have what you need, she replied with a bright look. Chapter 96. Tiando Auction House, Encountering Shuiqinghe Tiando City. Lin Chuan and Douluo walked down the crowded street. Douluo hadn't come with them, even though titled Douluo had been shadowing him the night before. It was still the city. Few would dare to act openly here. Besides, with Lin Chuan present, even a titled Douluo wouldn't succeed easily. The commotion of any fight between titled soul masters would have been loud enough for Douluo to notice and rush over. Before long, they reached the city center. Here we are, Douluo said, stopping in front of a domed building. It was a perfect hemisphere set on the ground, and a large hammer emblem hung above the entrance. Not the smith's hammer of Gengsin City, but an auctioneer's gavel. The place was as spacious and elegant as the Great Soul Fighting Arena. Lin Chuan surveyed it with mild interest. Douluo smiled. This is the Tiando Auction House. There are all kinds of rare goods you won't find on the open market. They hold auctions from time to time. I'm sure there'll be something you'll need, Xiao Chuan. Then let's go in and have a look. Lin Chuan's interest piqued. 4 tall attendants stood in a line at the entrance, hands folded over their lower abdomens and smiles professionally fixed in place. They weren't the world's most striking beauties, but they were pretty, well-proportioned, and dressed in tasteful long skirts that accentuated their poise. Lin Chuan and Duguyan approached, and one of the women stepped forward with a polite bow. "Welcome. May I help you?" "We'd like to attend the next auction," Duguyan replied. The attendant hesitated for a moment, then recovered her smile. "Of course, I'll need to complete a few procedures first. Do you have bidding credentials?" Lin Chuan understood immediately. He wiped his fingertips in the air and a gold card appeared in his hand. "Will this do?" She recognized it at a glance, a gold soul coin card requiring at least 10,000 gold soul coins stored to issue. It wasn't the auction house's own card, but it was more than sufficient. Her smile widened. "The next auction starts in half an hour. You're welcome to stroll the city or rest inside the hall until then." "What do you think, Ogawa?" Duguyan asked, turning to Lin Chuan with a teasing smile. "Let's look around first," Lin Chuan said. "Very well." The attendant inclined her head and led them inside with small, measured steps. The interior brightened instantly. No gaudy ornamentation, just a clean, milky white elegance. It felt simple and refined rather than cold. "This is a catalog of everything on display in the hall," she said, handing them a booklet. "If you see anything you like, just let us know." "Thank you." Lin Chuan took the catalog and opened it while Duguyan settled beside him on a sofa. The faint scent of the girl's perfume lingered as she sat. The booklet was thin, but packed with a bewildering variety of items. Duguyan, who used to frequent the place, skimmed it and shook her head. Not much different from before. Nothing new. Lin Chuan flipped through, marking herbs and ores that weren't especially precious, but would be useful. He didn't summon a staff member yet. He made a private list to buy later and reserved hope for rarer items at the auction. A stir at the entrance drew their attention. A well-groomed man in a clean green robe, black hair neatly arranged, walked in accompanied by 2 guards. Several people in finery gasped and bowed. "Your Highness?" The man smiled gently and raised a hand. "Please, no ceremony. I'm here for the auction. It's not a formal visit." His calm, regal bearing didn't erase the air of authority. The nobles complied with curt bows and withdrew, though many kept glances pointed in his direction. He moved straight for the rest area where Lin Chuan and Duguyan sat. "Miss Dugu, what a surprise to meet you here. It's been a long time," he said warmly. Duguyan rose and inclined her head. "Your Highness." "Don't be so formal," he waved her off. "I'm only attending the auction." He studied her a moment with a trace of disappointment. "It's such a pity you left Tiando Royal Academy, Miss Dugu. You were a rare talent." Duguyan flushed slightly, at a loss for words. "Everyone has their own path. Even though I left Tiando Royal Academy, Tianshui College I transferred to is still part of the Tiando Empire." "That's true," he conceded quickly, smiling with princely magnanimity. Then his gaze slid to Lin Chuan beside Duguyan. Interest lit his face. "This young man is unfamiliar to me, Miss Dugu. May I be introduced?" Lin Chuan's heart gave a quick beat. He had expected the prince might be here for him. He rose before Duguyan could answer. "I'll introduce myself. I am Lin Chuan. Pleased to meet your Highness." "So you are Lin Chuan," the prince said, impressed. "You're a soul master. Which academy are you attending? Have you considered transferring to Tiando Royal College?" It was a test, exactly as Lin Chuan suspected. He smiled, keeping his face composed. "Thank you for the compliment, Your Highness, but I am enrolled at Tianshui College and cannot transfer now. Please forgive me." The prince's brow lifted in surprise. "Tianshui College? But I thought Tianshui only admitted female soul masters." Lin Chuan had prepared his answer. "I was saved once in the frozen forest by Dean Shui of Tianshui College. I wanted to join the college to repay that kindness. Tianshui only recruits females, so perhaps Dean Shui took pity on my sincerity and allowed me to be associated with the college as a non-staff member." Shui Qingye's expression softened thoughtfully. "I see, that's a noble reason." He sighed with genuine regret. "It's a shame. To miss such a talent as you is truly unfortunate." He clearly believed the story enough to be moved. Whether Lin Chuan's account was entirely true or not, Shui Qinghe didn't press it further. He had already said enough to show that he had an interest in Lin Chuan's abilities, and making a good impression now could pay dividends later. As the prince smiled and conversed, a thought crossed his mind. The sudden transfer of Miss Dugu to Tianshui College was probably connected to this young man. If the Shui family could be won over, and if Lin Chuan had ties to them, it would benefit Shui Qinghe in the longer game. For now, however, he kept the concern quiet beneath his courteous demeanor, continuing to converse amiably with Dugu Yan and the newcomer at his side. Chapter 97. Too enthusiastic, Shui Qinghe's eyes lingered on Dugu Yan. From what she'd learned, Yu Tianheng of the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus sect had long taken an interest in Dugu Yan, yet Dugu Yan had abruptly transferred to another school and grown close to Lin Chuan. It had been Dugu Bo who came to take Dugu Yan away. Dugu Bo, a poison Douluo, hadn't been interested in the Blue Lightning heir. Instead, he'd let his granddaughter choose an ordinary soul master. That alone was telling. On top of that, Yu Tianheng had clearly been no match for Lin Chuan. This young man with an uncertain background seemed not only gifted, but also formidable. Dugu Bo's decisive behavior only reinforced that impression. There wasn't enough information to know exactly what made Lin Chuan special, but Shui Qinghe's short, casual conversation left him sitting nearby as if he'd merely come to greet and get acquainted. He treated people with an approachable courtesy rather than arrogance, a demeanor widely praised in Tiando. In Lin Chuan's mind, Jian Renshui's performance had been excellent. The prince looked the part of an outstanding heir to the empire. Had Lin Chuan not suspected the prince's motives, he might even have been impressed. Seeing Shui Qinghe sitting not far away, Dugu Yan stepped forward and said, "Xiao Chuan, the prince seems to think highly of you." Lin Chuan smiled and shook his head. That's not necessarily a good thing. He only chuckled when Dugu Yan's curious gaze lingered and didn't elaborate. "Dear guests, the auction will begin soon," an attendant announced. After a short wait, a staff member approached. "Brother Lin Chuan, why don't you join us?" Shui Qinghe invited, walking over with a warm smile. It was clear he was genuinely interested. Lin Chuan knew that hiding now would be useless. Once he'd piqued the prince's curiosity, investigation would be easy. Better to be open. "All right," he answered. "Let's go." Shui Qinghe led the way, with Lin Chuan and Dugu Yan following. The auction hall was spacious. Rows of seats faced a raised platform at the far end. Dugu Yan leaned close to Lin Chuan and whispered, "Xiao Chuan, Tiando Auction House has more than one venue. Only the large auctions every 3 months are held in the main hall. The rest are decentralized." Lin Chuan nodded. Dugu Yan's quiet explanation improved his opinion of the auction house. Before he could reply, Shui Qinghe interrupted with a smile. "This your first time, Brother Lin?" Lin Chuan admitted. "Yes, I grew up a commoner. I never had a chance to come to places like this." "Don't say that," Shui said easily. "With Brother Lin's talent, you could become a noble of the empire if you wanted." "Then we should borrow your good words," Dugu Yan joked. Thanks to Shui Qinghe, the 3 of them were seated in the front row. Next to each seat was a bidding panel with 4 colored buttons, 100, 1,000, and 10,000, indicating bid increments. As the room filled, the auctioneer took the stage. "Everyone, our first item today, a suit of silver-scale armor," he announced. "Forged by a master blacksmith in Gengxin City from the shell of a 900-year-old silver-armored beast. It offers exceptional defense. In our tests, it withstands a full-strength strike from a great soul master. It's been specially treated to be remarkably lightweight. Starting price, 1,000 gold soul coins. Minimum raise, 100. Under the auctioneer's guidance, the atmosphere warmed. The Tiandao auction house was exactly what its reputation promised. Top-tier items that most places would never dare to put on the block. They even sold slaves openly on stage, a practice officially banned by both the Tiando and Xingluo empires. The scandalous display made it obvious there were powerful protectors behind the house. Lin Chuan watched without moving, frowning occasionally at the sight, but he didn't interfere. He did, however, bid on several items he liked. Sitting beside the prince made other bidders less persistent. After a few tests, many buyers folded. Perhaps they were being considerate or thought it wiser to avoid competing with someone so obviously favored. Lin Chuan didn't hesitate to take advantage. Half an hour later, the auction ended. It's over. Brother Lin, Miss Dugu, shall we go? Shui Qinghe rose and led the way out. Lin Chuan and Duguyan followed. Outside, a staff member carried a tray listing the purchases. Your Highness, distinguished guest, here are your items. Lin Chuan checked the list, then reached for a gold card to pay. To his surprise, the prince smiled and stopped him. Sir, Shui said sweetly, someone has already paid for you. Lin Chuan and Duguyan froze, then comprehension dawned on them. Lin Chuan felt awkward. Your Highness, this is inappropriate. I can't let you pay for me. Please take it back. Shui Qinghe waved him off, a little embarrassed himself. There are only a few things. Why should you be so formal, Brother Lin? I think we're very compatible. I wanted to give them as a gift. It's just a small gesture, not a big deal. Or is it that Brother Lin doesn't want to be friends with me? He teased, feigning wounded pride. Lin Chuan had no reply. The prince was being deliberately forward and generous. Most people would be flattered by a royal taking such an interest. Lin Chuan felt the urge to refuse, but also recognized the social reality. A prince's favor was difficult to turn down. He took a breath, bowed slightly, and said, It's my honor to be friends with His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. Thank you. I will accept your kindness. Shui Qinghe brightened. Since we're friends, you don't need to be so formal. I'm a few years older than you. Call me Big Brother Shui. It'll make us closer. Lin Chuan hesitated, then agreed. All right, Big Brother Shui. He tried to keep his tone low. He inwardly sighed at the prince's boundless enthusiasm. Shui slapped Lin Chuan on the shoulder with genuine warmth. I really feel fortunate to have met you today, Brother Lin. Brother Lin, Miss Dugu, why don't you come to my place after the auction? Let me treat you. Lin Chuan declined politely. Thank you, Brother Shui, but I have things to attend to. I can't tonight. If there's another opportunity, I'll accept. Better not to go to an unfamiliar palace, he thought. Though the prince was seemingly open, his status and the hidden calculations behind his generosity made the invitation risky. That's a pity, Shui said with a sigh, though he nodded. If you have something to do, I won't force you, but don't refuse next time. Of course, Lin Chuan promised. Go on then. I won't see you off. After a brief farewell, Lin Chuan and Duguyan left. Shui Qinghe watched them go, his expression unreadable for a moment. Your Highness. A warm voice cut through the quiet. Shui turned to see Ning Fengji approaching in his gilded brocade robes, with Gu Rong at his side. Both were from the Seven Treasures glazed tile sect. Teacher, Senior Gu, Shui greeted with a surprised smile. Ning Fengji's face was gentle as ever. What an unexpected meeting. I didn't expect to find your Highness out and about today. Shui laughed softly. I haven't been out in a while. I wanted to walk and see how the city's changed. No need to laugh. Have you found anything of interest? Ning Fengji asked. Shui's eyes brightened. I did. I made a new friend. Ning's eyebrows rose. Your Highness, do you mean the young man from Tianshui College? Shui was surprised. Teacher, do you know Brother Lin as well? Ning Fengji nodded. I've been to Tianshui College. I met him there. He's an exceptionally outstanding young man. Your Highness has a good eye. Shui's curiosity was immediate. Teacher, if he earned such praise from you, please tell me about him. Then let's walk and talk, Ning Fengji said with a smile, and the three of them moved off together. Chapter 98. The Truth is Revealed. Phew, finally out, Lin Chuan exhaled as he stepped away from the Tiando auction house. Relief loosened the tension in his shoulders. Duguyan glanced at him and, seeing him relax, smirked. Xiao Chuan, are you really making such a fuss? You don't seem to care for His Highness the Crown Prince much, but he does treat you well. Lin Chuan forced a bitter smile and shook his head. Yanzi, it's not that simple. The Crown Prince is certainly friendly, but he's got motives. What motives? The most he could do is try to recruit you into the Tiando Empire's service. Duguyan waved the idea off. If that's it, so what? If only it were that straightforward, Lin Chuan thought. He chuckled softly without explaining further, and kept his distance from the prince for the time being. Wuhan Palace and its people weren't inherently bad in his mind, but that did not extend to Bibi Dong. That woman's fanaticism could drag the world into ruin, and Lin Chuan had no desire to be involved. Come on, Yanzi, let's head back. Coming. Yan linked his arm with Lin Chuan's, and they walked toward Bo's residence as night slowly fell. Meanwhile, a luxurious carriage rolled out of Tiando City, two dark horses, crossbreeds of soul beasts and ordinary mounts, pulling it toward Qibao City. Inside, Ning Fengji and Gu Rong sat opposite each other. The carriage ran smoothly. There was no jolt in the cabin. "Uncle Gu, it's exactly as we suspected," Ning Fengji said, speaking first. He set down his teacup and continued. "According to Qinghe, that young man Lin Chuan is very close to Yan. They're even suspected of being a couple." Gu Rong, who wore a sly, calculating smile, laughed. "That old poisoner really does like to spend. He could have chosen the old Dragon King's grandson, but instead he bets on a common-born soul master. Brave." Ning Fengji drained his tea and sighed. "But it may have been the right bet. If I hadn't heard it directly from Shui Qinghe and checked other sources, I wouldn't have believed it. A boy his age defeating Yu Tianheng with a single move. Yu Tianheng is the old Dragon King's eldest grandson, one of the top young talents of the blue electric Tyrannosaurus line. His beast martial spirit is among the best, and his soul power has reached level 40. That kind of opponent doesn't lose to someone younger lightly. It's terrifying." Gu Rong's eyes gleamed. "Young people nowadays really are something." Ning Fengji shook his head. "It's a shame Tianshui Academy and Bo found him first. Don't get your hopes up about inviting Poison Douluo and Lin Chuan into the Seven Treasures Glazed sect," Gu Rong said flatly when Ning Fengji raised the idea. "I'm afraid it'll be difficult," she continued. Bo is a free spirit. He resists outside control. Both the Tiando Empire and Wuhun Palace have tried to recruit him and failed. As for Lin Chuan, Shui Qinghe is already interested in him, and you're the prince's tutor. You don't have a good angle to compete directly. If we force it, it could damage the Qibao sect's relationship with the Tiando Empire." Ning Fengji's expression soured further. "If only we'd met Lin Chuan sooner." Gu Rong softened and reached out. "Fengji, don't be too pessimistic. With me and the old swordsman still around, the Seven Treasures Glazed sect can hold on. We always produce a few outstanding juniors." Ning Fengji said nothing at first, staring into his teacup. After a moment, he looked up. "Uncle Gu, do you think I could do what Bo did? Bring Rongrong and Lin Chuan together?" Gu Rong smirked and lifted her teacup slowly. "If you're not afraid of Rongrong getting into trouble with you and making the old swordsman furious, then go for it." Ning Fengji's face flushed. He decided not to rush things. He would consult Sword Douluo Chenqin and his daughter Ning Rongrong first. In the prince's mansion, the secret chamber was quiet. Qian Renshui had returned to her usual appearance and reclined in a chair, her fingers tapping the armrest as she reviewed a file. Lin Chuan was born in Kaomiao village, Fosnuo province of the Tiando Empire. His father was a soldier who died in battle. His mother died in childbirth. He's under 15. His martial spirit is a black bow, and his innate talent recorded is only soul power level 5. She read the details again, frowning. She had seen this kind of file many times, yet it didn't add up. How could someone with only level 5 innate soul power, in less than 8 years, develop to a point where he defeated Yu Tianheng, a genius with a top-tier beast martial spirit and level 40 soul power with a single move? "Master Shi, are you certain this is accurate?" she asked a figure standing below, the snakespear Douluo at attention. "Young master, my subordinates confirmed it, and even tracked down the man who performed his martial spirit awakening," Master Shi replied gravely. "He truly awakened with only level 5 innate soul power." Qian Renshui's fingers tapped faster. It suddenly made sense. The sudden sale of special pills and soul tools by the Shui family and Bo's rapid rise in strength, these things likely had a common source. "So he must have obtained an inheritance from some large ruin," she murmured, eyes narrowing. "Not only would he have the method to craft soul-enhancing pills, but he might also have mastered soul tool technology. If that were true, Lin Chuan would possess abilities that could shift the continent's balance. Pills that could enhance soul power and advanced soul tools. Such a figure could not be left to chance." Qian Renshui felt the chill of urgency. "No, we must secure such a genius. If he falls under someone else's influence, Wuhun Palace's plans will be jeopardized." She considered the options. A direct attempt to woo him might work, but it could take too long and give others time to act. A forceful seizure would stir suspicion throughout the empires and sects. It might even put Ning Fengji and allies on guard. She made up her mind. We'll do both. If they could win him over quietly, all the better. If not, they would have a fallback. The Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy elite competition was only days away, and with Lin Chuan's strength, he could lead Tianshui Academy to the finals. The finals would be hosted in Wuhun City by Wuhun Palace. That would be the perfect opportunity. Wuhun City had many titled Douluo stationed. If Dugu Bo tried to act alone, he couldn't snatch Lin Chuan back. Qian Renshui crumpled the printed file and burned it, then dipped a brush in ink and began to write. When she finished, she folded the letter and handed it to Master Shi. Master Shi, please deliver this to my grandfather in person, she said. Do not let it out of your sight. Master Shi received the envelope solemnly. You have my word. I will deliver it intact, young master. Go quickly, Qian Renshui said, reclining back and watching the candlelight tremble. Her eyes reflected a flicker of something like admiration. Brother Lin, you really surprised me. Back at the Dugu residence, Lin Chuan and Dugu Yan had returned early. After dinner, as they were preparing to rest, 3 guests arrived in the courtyard. Old Poison, long time no see, called a familiar voice. An older man with silver hair and a matching beard strode forward with a hearty grin. He seemed to know Dugu Bo well. Behind him walked 2 women who looked similar. One was Ye Lingling, whom Lin Chuan had met once before at Tiando Royal Academy, and the other was slightly older, likely Lingling's mother. Lingling! Duguyan brightened and hurried to greet her. Chapter 99, Not Shabby. Yanzi, Ye Lingling called, smiling as she nodded. I can hear your loud voice from way out here. You're really noisy. Dugubo snorted, a trace of disgust in his tone. The white-haired old man beside him only laughed, unfazed. Can't help it. I'm an old man. My voice carries. Still, I'm relieved to see you're alive, you old poisoner. Humph. I'm a titled Douluo. Even if you die, I won't, Dugubo shot back. They traded barbs for a moment, then both burst out laughing. Old Poison, long time no see. Sorry to trouble you today. The old man straightened and spoke more seriously. Dugubo's face turned sour at once. If you're going to be distant again, get out of here. You old poisoner? The white-haired man sighed, a little helpless. He knew when Dugubo was half joking, then his expression grew earnest. Old Poison, Lingling told me everything. Are you serious? Can you really solve the defects in the 9-heart begonia? If I invited you here, of course I'm serious. Come inside, let's sit and talk, Dugubo replied. The mood was a strange mix of anxiety and excitement. The old man's hands trembled, his hollow eyes brightened. Really? He blurted. All right, let's go in. Yilingling and her mother looked excited as well. The group moved through the front yard into the main hall. Duguyan busied himself preparing tea, setting cups at each place, but none of the 3 generations of Ye's felt like drinking. Yilingling tugged at Dugubo. Yan's getting more and more grown up, but no tea now, old poison. Let's get down to business. Just a moment. Let me introduce someone first, Dugubo rasped and turned to the young man at his side. This is Lin Chuan, my friend. Lin, this is old Guyi, Ye Lingling's grandfather, and this is Ye Rong, Lingling's mother. Lin Chuan set his teacup down and bowed politely. Hello, Senior Gu, Aunt Ye. Ye Rong nodded in return. Guyi smiled warmly. No need for such formality. If you're a friend of Old Poison, you're my friend too. Guyi didn't give his trust lightly. The young man before him must be extraordinary to have Dugubo's endorsement. While Guyi studied him, Lin Chuan quietly observed the Ye family. Guyi looked like an ordinary elderly gentleman at first glance, approachable and gentle, but there was a deeply concealed aura beneath. Underestimating him would be dangerous. Ye Rong, in a graceful court dress, looked remarkably youthful. Sitting beside Lingling, she could almost be mistaken for her sister. Now that we all know each other, let's get to the point, Dugubo said, clearing his throat. Old Gu, Lingling has explained the situation to you. Since you're here, what's your plan? Old Poison, first, are you serious? Guyi asked. Dugubo didn't waste words. He manifested his martial soul. A low dragon roar rolled out as his limbs swelled into sharp claws, and a yellow-green dragon tail swished behind him. Your martial soul has evolved? Guyi's eyes widened in shock. As one of Dugubo's few longtime friends, Gu Yi had kept up with the old man's situation. It had only been a few years since they last met. Was it already this different? Is your body all right, old poison? Gu Yi asked. Dugubo nodded. Completely fixed. Not only that, my martial souls evolved from the green phosphorus snake king into the green phosphorus earth dragon. My strength's improved a lot. Those people won't look down on me anymore. The evidence was right there. Gu Yi's shock softened into curiosity. How did you do it? Dugubo withdrew his martial soul with a satisfied grin. There was a gloating pleasure in showing off a change in front of acquaintances. Just luck. All thanks to Lin here. If anyone can fix the flaws in Lingling's 9-heart begonia, it's him. Gu Yi blinked. He had known Dugubo for years. When the old poisoner spoke seriously, it carried weight. If anyone else had claimed such a thing, Gu Yi would have dismissed it as nonsense. But Dugubo had shown his own transformation as proof. Young Lin, Gu Yi said, standing. He bowed deeply. If what old poison says is true, and you can do this for us, the Ye family will be forever grateful. We will repay you properly. Ye Lingling and her mother rose and bowed with him. Lin Chuan quickly moved to support Gu Yi, keeping his voice humble. No need for such formality, Senior Gu. I'm friends with old Dugu, and Yanzi is close to Miss Ye. I couldn't turn my back on them. I do need to be honest, Lin Chuan continued. I can try to remove the 9-heart begonia's limitations, but this situation isn't the same as old poison's. I can't promise 100%. Senior Gu should think it over. Gu Yi hesitated, then Ye Lingling spoke up without missing a beat. Grandpa, I want to lift the restrictions on the 9-heart begonia. Lin. Ye Rong's color changed and she gripped her daughter's hand, but she saw that determined light in Ye Lingling's eyes, the kind she hadn't seen in years. Mother, the begonia's curse. I don't want to watch you suffer like Grandma did. No matter what, I have to fix this. Ye Rong felt something stir inside her. She couldn't remember the last time Lingling had shown such clear resolve, maybe 6 years ago. Wuhun's awakening of the 9-heart begonia had changed everything, but in this moment, Ye Rong felt her daughter had truly grown up. Mom knows, she said quietly. Grandpa and I support you. For generations, the Ye family had yearned to rid the 9-heart begonia of its limits. Now there was a real chance. No matter the risk, it was worth trying. Gu Yi swallowed and straightened his posture. Young Lin, please do your best, he said loudly and solemnly. Whether it works or not, the Ye family will remember your kindness and repay it. Lin Chuan nodded, as if he had expected this. If Senior Gu insists, I'll do my utmost. I can say with confidence that there's at least a 70% chance of success. As for the remaining 30%, I'll leave that to fate. Then we'll entrust Lingling to you, Gu Yi said with relief. Take the time you need to prepare and let us know. No hurry, we've waited this long, Gu Yi added when Duguyan spoke up. Duguyan had been silent until then. Why doesn't Lingling transfer to Tianshui College, he suggested. Everyone looked at him. Seeing their looks, he hurried to explain. Lin said he wants to study the 9-heart begonia. Lingling's not here now, so it's inconvenient to manage both places. If she transfers to Tianshui, Lin can study the spirit properly and help her more easily. If Lingling joins us, Tianshui's team will be stronger. We'll definitely win the Continental Soul Master Elite competition then. Duguyan added enthusiastically. Gu Yi smiled wryly. It's not that simple. Word is Wuhun Palace will send a saint this year, and there will be 2 other saints participating. The strength in the so-called Golden Generation shouldn't be underestimated. Grandpa, the Golden Generation isn't unbeatable, and we're not pushovers, Duguyan shot back, then a wave of soul power pulsed from him. Xiao Yanyan, have you broken through to the Soul Sect? Gu Yi asked, surprised. Duguyan was only a couple of years older than Ye Lingling. A year ago, he had been at level 38. Moving up that many levels in a short time was noteworthy. Duguyan grinned with obvious pride. More like, I'm at soul power level 49. Ye Lingling blinked. That was far beyond what she'd expected. She was only level 41. The gap that had once been 3 levels had widened dramatically. Not bad, old poison. You really have a successor, Gu Yi said with a tinge of envy. Dugubo looked proud for a moment, then waved his hand. Yanyan works hard, but it wasn't all effort. He wouldn't have improved that much in a year without some help from this kid. Are you saying Lin Chuan can help others increase their soul power cultivation speed? Gu Yi leaned forward. Dugubo only smiled mysteriously. Have you heard about the pills that suddenly appeared on the market? Of course, Gu Yi said, narrowing his eyes. You didn't make them, did you? Could it be? Dubo didn't elaborate, but his expression and the look he shared with Lin Chuan said enough. Gu Yi slammed his hand on the table, then laughed and nodded. So transfer to Tianshui it is. This isn't just about transferring schools, Dugubo said. It's to make it easier for Lin to study the nine-heart begonia and increase the chance of solving its defects. Wronger, tomorrow go to Tiando Royal Academy and withdraw Lingling, Gu Yi decided without hesitation. Dugubo chuckled. Old man. Gu Yi paid him no mind. He looked at the assembled faces, at the eager young people, at his determined granddaughter, and allowed himself a small, pleased smile. Cultivation, quite not shabby, he murmured. Chapter 100. An Unexpected Surprise. The next morning, Ye Rong escorted Ye Lingling to Tiando Royal Academy to formally withdraw her enrollment. The academy teachers were stunned when they heard the news. The 3 members of the Soul Duo Teaching Committee were even called in to try to persuade her to stay. But Ye Lingling had already made up her mind, and Ye Rong, busy and constrained, could not be there in person. After all, Tiando Royal Academy was only a school. They couldn't force a student to stay against her will. Duguyan's recent departure had already weakened the Royal Do team. Now, with Ye Lingling, the team's auxiliary soulmaster, gone as well, the lineup had suffered another serious blow. Even if the team made it to the finals, their prospects looked bleak. The committee members could only sigh and return to the teaching building to consider how to fill the vacancy. Word of the withdrawal spread quickly. At the prince's mansion, Shui Qinghe had not come to the academy that day. His duties kept him in the palace, attending to daily practice and learning statecraft. When his steward informed him that Ye Lingling had dropped out, he was bewildered. She had been fine just 2 days earlier. Why the sudden change? Have you checked where Ye Lingling has been lately? Shui Qinghe asked. Your Highness, the steward replied, the city guard reported that Ye Rong took Miss Ye to the Dugu residence last night. They didn't leave until morning, and then they went straight to the academy to withdraw her. Dugu residence? The pieces clicked into place. If Ye Lingling had been taken to the Dugu mansion, she might be transferring to Tianshui Academy like Dugu Yan. Whatever Dugu Yan, or Brother Lin, had said must have been persuasive. Lin Chuan's appeal was evidently stronger than Shui Qing had expected. More worrying, it suggested Lin Chuan might be hiding a big secret. Go with me. We'll pay a visit to the Ye family, try to persuade Ye Lingling to come back, the prince decided. His steward had to interrupt. Your Highness, it's too late. The city guards reported 2 luxurious carriages left the city at dawn. Sitting in them were the poisoned Douluo and the head of the Ye family. Shui Qinghe fell quiet. Of course, leave if they can get away with it, and meanwhile drain the academy of its best fighters. He couldn't help the sudden mix of annoyance and reluctant admiration. Forget it. They're gone already. There's no point in chasing them. Let them be. He shook his head, and after a brief pause, stood. Lure, change my clothes. I'm going to the palace to see my father. Yes, Your Highness. Meanwhile, Lin Chuan and his companions rushed straight back to Tianshui Academy without stopping. The small group that had left had expanded during the trip. What had been 3 returned as 5. Are Dean Shui and the others not back yet? Lin Chuan asked. He had meant to show Shui Lanshan that he'd brought another promising student, but Shui and Leng Man had led the Tianshui team out on a big soul-hunting mission. They were still out. Finding suitable soul beasts for 4th and 8th soul rings took time. Gu Yi laughed, unruffled. That's fine. We'll wait for Dean Shui. It gives us more time to get to know Tianshui City. Du Guyan, cheerful and forward, already had ideas of her own. Lingling, why don't you stay at the academy and room with me? My mother and I live in Tianshui City. If you need anything, you're welcome to come by. Ye Lingling nodded quietly at the suggestion. Friend Lin, Old Poison, we'll be going now. It's been too long since we met. Old man, let's find a place to have a drink, Gu Yi said. Sounds good, Dugubo agreed, leaving with Gu Yi and Ye Rong. Come on, Lingling. I'll take you to my place first, and then show you the academy. Tianshui College may not be as prestigious as Tiando, but you won't be disappointed, Duguyan promised. Ye Lingling's face remained calm, but some of the loneliness and emptiness that had haunted her recently had eased. Any hope of removing the restriction on her martial spirit, was enough to brighten her eyes. I'm going to rest first, Lin Chuan said. After so much travel, he wanted a break. He hadn't expected to be separated from the two girls. To his surprise, Duguyan and Ye Lingling were still with them. He frowned for a moment. Yanzi, didn't you say you were taking Miss Ye to your residence? I am. Just to her apartment, Duguyan teased. When Lin Chuan seemed puzzled, she stuck out her tongue and added, You realize now? Wait, so that little wooden house by the lake behind the college is yours? Lin Chuan asked. You finally noticed. Duguyan laughed. Then why haven't I seen you living there before? He pressed. I lived in the dorms. As for why I didn't stay here. She gave a secretive blink and a bright, ringing laugh. No telling. Come on, Lingling, we're going. They ran off together, leaving Lin Chuan grinning and shaking his head. Duguyan's moods were always so changeable he could never predict them, but they were never dull. Back at the little wooden house by the lake, steam drifted across the water as Duguyan and Ye Lingling walked in and chatted. Lin Chuan settled into a chair and exhaled in contentment. There was nothing like one's own small nest. Now we need to figure out how to deal with Jushin Haitang, he said, sinking into thought. Jushin Haitang, the nine-heart begonia, was unusual. With his current abilities, there was no direct way to remove its strange restriction. The most realistic approach was to use an alchemical pill to evolve the martial spirit into another form. That might lift the limitation. In the past, other heroes had used herbs and pills to break level caps and resolve strange spirit traits. Yu Shaogang's level limit was broken with medicines, Ma Hongjian's evil fire was cured, Ning Rongrong's 7 treasures glazed pagoda evolved into 9 treasures after treatment. If something similar could work here, a well-made elixir might do the trick. Excitement quickened his thoughts. The best base ingredient would be the Chiluo tulip, he decided. It should promote evolution in Ye Lingling's martial spirit, but I'll need several auxiliary herbs as well. He opened his eyes, grabbed paper and pen, and began listing the herbs he would need. A knock sounded at the door. Come in. Duguyan pushed the door open, brandishing a satisfied smile. Xiao Chuan, I brought Lingling to see you. Lin Chuan passed the paper to Ye Lingling without ceremony. These are the herbs I need. Give this list to Senior Gu and have him help acquire them. Ye Lingling reached for the paper, and Duguyan leaned forward, peering curiously. So many of them. Are they all to fix Lingling's martial spirit? Lin Chuan nodded. Yes, this is an idea I just came up with. It should promote the evolution of Jushin Begonia. Really? Duguyan cried out. Ye Lingling's eyes lit up. On a sudden impulse, she released her martial spirit. A delicate 9-heart begonia flower appeared in her hand. A pink begonia with layers of white and rose petals, graceful and vivid. Its vines and leaves drooped gently, catching an imagined breeze. It was a beautiful, living thing. Duguyan shivered slightly. Lingling, what are you doing? Lin Chuan said he'd need to study my spirit, Ye Lingling replied simply. Maybe he'll be more confident about his plan if he sees it. Lin Chuan had only meant the remark to reassure Gu Yi. He hadn't expected Ye Lingling to take it so literally. Now that the spirit stood before him, he reached out and cradled the begonia. Warmth flowed into him at once, like slipping into a hot spring. Life energy, soft, pervasive, abundant, poured from the flower into his body. The begonia began to bloom further, and currents of vitality streamed through him, bright and serene. It was as if the soul itself were being bathed in renewal. No wonder the 9-heart begonia's healing power was legendary. That kind of life force could pull someone back from the brink. It could revive, mend, and sustain. Even just touching it, Lin Chuan felt something shift within him, a clearer sense of the world's life force laws. A quiet understanding settled over him. The begonia's power had given him a fresh insight into the nature of life and soul energy, an unexpected surprise. If Ye Lingling's martial spirit could be evolved into a form that retained this unique, abundant life energy, she wouldn't just be a healed girl, she'd be a living reservoir of life power that could aid his future studies and comprehension of law. Lin Chuan's mind brightened with possibilities. Helping Lingling wasn't merely an act of compassion. It might provide him with a powerful ally, a source of life force to assist him in his own cultivation and understanding. After all the help he had already given her, he was fairly certain she would agree to work with him when she realized what was possible.